6th. So I will call to order the workshop of the Redmond School Board. And it looks like we have Nicole Buck online. In person, we have Jim Bryant, Arlen Dierks, Pam Rowe, myself, Anna Ostendorf, and Superintendent Karsten Anderson. Holly Tower and Jennifer Tift are not here. First, we will do our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so because this is a workshop, we do not make any changes to our agenda. The first up are finances. So we have Ms. Paradis here to give us some more information about those.
All right. Just give me a second here and I will pull them up on screen.
Sounds good.
So the first thing in the finance focus part of your agenda packet is the treasurer's report. Showing as of the end of April, it shows that our cash ledger ties out to our bank statement. And then we have, sorry, I'm getting an echo. And then the second page is the investments. Are there any questions on the treasurer's report?
Is there anything important that should be pointed out?
Nothing on the treasurer's report.
Okay.
Do you have a question?
Just checking once again on these different ESSER funds, different things from COVID now. I assume that will book into this year eventually, or will some of that book into next year if it comes in late?
If it is attributed to expenses for this school year, it will be booked into this school year as a receivable through the audit process. If it's attributable to expenses after July 1st, it'll be booked in next school year.
And if I'm looking right, it seems to me we have around a couple $1 million yet that's due to come in on these various things. So looking at that, and I'm looking at the cash balance here, it looks like we're doing okay at this time.
Yes.
Thank you. Clarified where we're at for me.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some programs or positions that are funded with ESSER in this next school year.
Correct. Correct. We reserved funds to spend on positions for 2 school years.
Okay. All right.
The next up is the enrollment report. This will be the last one where I have seat count information for this school year. It is looking, if everything holds true, we may be 15 weighted ADMs behind budget, which is not good news. We'll keep watching this over the summer. Starting here in late June, we'll start to put submissions into the Department of Ed, and then I'll get, every time we put a submission in, I'll get a report that'll say what our actual ADM is, and we'll keep going through that every month until our audit, because it only shows us, so if we put it in now and we had, say we had 100 errors, it's only going to show me the ADM on the error-free lines.
Oh, okay.
So then as we fix more errors and submit in July, it'll update that number again.
When do we have like the final?
Next February.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next February on the enrollment?
So we'll put in the final submission for data in October, but statewide districts have until the end of November to make an appeal to say if 2 districts are disagreeing on a student. They'll have until then to make an appeal, and then MDE will have a period of time to respond to all of the appeals before they'll say it's final.
Okay, so if a student attended a different district for part of the year and our district for part of the year, that's where there would be that discrepancy of what percentage of their fund goes to which district and that kind of thing.
Yep. Or if it's a special ed student and say we're disputing that they are a Red Wing resident. Because if they're a Red Wing resident, we get billed for their services. Well, maybe mom or dad has a Red Wing address, but lives just over the border into another school district, or just on, and that's where we'll get into residency disputes and things like that.
How many of those do you usually have for each school year?
We typically, once we get to October 31st, are pretty solid.
Okay.
When we submit for that first time here in June, Debbie and Melinda are going to get the error reports back. That's when they'll start calling districts and we'll try to work it out. Most of the time it's like you said, where it's a day overlap, like we enrolled them on this day, but the school before us didn't drop them till the day later. And then we got to figure out who's right. Who's right. Mm-hmm.
So we'll have an idea before February.
Yes.
What our ADMs are
Yep.
for the last school year. And what is our number for next year's budget?
2,500 even.
We're at 2479 right now, estimated.
25.
Average is 2479.
That is in the seat count, yes. When we're looking at what end of year enrollment projections, if you go down a little bit on the green line, it's 25, 25, 25, 24.8.
When will we find when if students are dropping out for another school?
It'll probably be near the end of September before we have that.
I mean, we should have an idea of kids that are in second grade right now going to another school, a charter school.
If they have done their open enrollment paperwork, yes.
If they haven't open enrollment paperwork, for us or for them?
For them. So they would fill out open enrollment paperwork with the charter school, and then ideally we'd get a copy to sign off on.
And we should get that prior to September then.
We should, but that doesn't always occur.
We'll keep an eye on that, because we certainly don't want to lose children, but do what we can to keep them.
Would the charter school need that open enrollment paper so they can get their funding? Am I correct?
They should have it in
So,
hand, yes. If
For
they're
them to
following
know
the
when the
process.
student coming in and it's gonna work out, they would be wanting to have that open enrollment form filled out sooner rather than later. That's where I'm getting, is that correct?
That's correct.
Probably.
Because otherwise we'll be getting into disputes with them, like I just talked about, on where were they actually attending on the first day of school.
So they have to fill out that form. And we know they can't just start going to school there without filling out some paperwork.
Without filling out enrollment forms. Yep.
So another issue would be kids who just don't report anything, or their parents don't report anything. They might move out of state or move to a different school district, and we haven't heard from them. So other states have different requirements, and we may not get the notice.
I get that.
Yeah, there's a handful of those every year we have to track down.
Sometimes dozens.
Thank you.
Any other questions on enrollment?
We gotta keep plugging away, figuring out a way to turn this around. It's just not the school board's responsibility, that's not the superintendent's, not the principal. It's everybody's got to play a part trying to reverse this so it can, we can start to slowly increase our enrollment to some degree. What those are, I don't have the answers. I don't think any one person does, but as a group, we should be working, striving to do that.
I would really love, this is like the 20th time I've heard that same comment since I've been on the board, and I'd really love to see a concerted effort at doing that. If there's a person that needs to be named in charge of whatever you want to call it, I think there needs to be a committee or a group or some sort of think tank or something so that we stop talking about it and actually start doing something about it. Because you're right, it's alarming I think we need to get, not just, I mean, I know we've done some work on finding out why students are leaving, but I think there's so much more that we can do to reach out to those students who've left. I have a friend of mine whose student open enrolled in an online school, and she said, even if somebody gave me a call a week later after we, enrolled in this other school to say, hey, we see that you've enrolled in this other school, is there anything we could have done differently? And just so you know, we're not going anywhere. We'd love to have you back someday. Here's what you do. And even a postcard, 6 months after saying, we're thinking of you, just some concerted effort so that kids and families know that we know and we appreciate them, and they're not just a person or a number, that they're not just a number, they're a person. You know what I'm trying to say? Mm-hmm. It's that personal reaching out, that person-to-person touch that makes, I think it's gonna make a difference. And now, I really do think we have to think about competition. We've got a competitor in town, and that we need to up our game.
Nikki has her hand up.
Yes. Ms. Buck?
I've stated this before. We're not very welcoming here. And after having my first year on the board, that is probably the most overwhelming issues I've had to deal with, is the fighting between different groups, the non-inclusive. And I addressed it. I said, we're the ones to blame. At the door, we separate them by race and economics right away to get them to figure out who needs help. And I expressed that. And then at a meeting after that, we're talking about being non-concurrent for, 24 plus years in a row. And then special education. And here, everybody's just talking about, it's like they're talking about me in front of me. Not once did anybody reach out and say, tell me, can you give us some insight? Because you're the person that struggled on the inside and got through. Not once. But that's the way the system is. And we're just supposed to plug away, keep upholding these laws and rules, just keep running fast. But one thing, if you guys would know with ADHD, it is terrible to rush us. Terrible. And it's terrible to rush any other person. That is how anxiety is created. That is how mental health gets out of control. And that's how we have everybody fighting on the inside, because the adults can't get along. We don't know how to get along, but it's not our fault. It's the system's fault, because we've been separated at the beginning. I've never felt so alone, like in school. Oh, I feel alone as an adult amongst all of you. I do. Not by anybody's fault. It's just the way that we have, and then like things happen, like we get excluded. People who are different. It's not just on the outside. It's anybody. If you don't fit in that 1%, you're excluded. Today, nobody wants to work with you because nobody wants to be labeled as an ethnic kid or somebody who struggles, because in school you have no idea how that feels. How it feels. So nobody wants to play with you. Even at 42, nobody wants to play with us. Nobody wants to do anything with us because they've been segregated, they've been taught. And it's just ingrained in everybody's being. We are not a community. And this makes my heart happy though. We're having these conversations. This is heartfelt. We want people here and we want to change. So I just wanted to make that very known, because I don't know if anybody knows. I cry before every board meeting after finding that out. That hurts my soul, and you can read about it, you can understand what you want, but you will never be in our shoes. But what you can do is help fix it so nobody feels like this, because diversity just isn't on the outside. And we're training these kids to be institutionalized. I didn't even realize that I've been backwards for all of you. I always have. You need it, you want it, I'm there. And I do it for free. I have to accommodate to everybody. I didn't even realize that I too am institutionalized. What we need to be doing is individualizing these children and helping them grow their gifts and become real strong community members that come back to us someday. But if we don't change, all my family is going and gone. I didn't even get a chance to meet some people before they leave, other Dakota people. And if we don't change, I have to leave too someday because I have a son I do not want to bury for being different.
Thank you, Nikki. Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, thank you, Nikki. Well, and actually everyone has spoken. One thing that kind of hit me 2-3 weeks ago is that there was a family friend who was choosing another public school district just because of the way their initial interactions with the other school district versus us. And so, especially with regard to showing kids around the buildings, talking about our programming, how we conduct our open houses and those kinds of things. And so I talked to Ann Robertson the next morning. Of course, she's all over it. And, you know, she agreed or even volunteered to kind of take that on because we need much stronger customer service and, you know, initial positive interactions with families. So we have a good program here. We have a lot to offer. We just need to show it, and we need to work directly and personally with our kids who might become our students. So anyway, and I'll be including that in the next admin report that she is taking that on. And she could also take on a lot of the other marketing things like you suggested, ma'am, or Ms. Rowe, sorry.
Thanks.
All right.
Okay.
The other piece on the financial update for the month of April is the budget report. As of the end of April, we'd received $24,384,553 for the general fund. That's 62.91% of our revised budget compared to 66.3 and 68.07. As Arlen mentioned before the meeting started, it's mostly in that federal category where we're waiting for funds to be received from those COVID grants. We do have a big payment that came in early May that'll show on our next report, and then we'll probably have another one here in June. For expenditures, we've expended $26,811,470 out of our general fund. That's 69.43% of our budget, compared to 73.1 and 72.7. The big thing to note here is, although we had settled the teacher's contract prior to the end of April, their retro payments did not hit until the first week in May. So that's going to catch us up on those salaries and benefits lines and stay within our projections there. That's why we're trending behind, is because those contract retro payments are not included as of the end of April. If you turn to the next page of that document, you can look at the other more minor funds for food service, community ed, debt service, things of that nature. Again, nothing concerning coming out of any of those funds. Are there any questions on the April budget to actual
Another
report?
question. You know, we get all this things to look at every month, and I'm not complaining about the information. I think instead of us trying to go through all these pages to see where we're at and all that, a narrative where we are at the end of each month, are we under budget, over budget, you know, instead of, you know, we got pages of stuff we're going through, and you're talking, you're doing fine. It's just that we're trying to line up our lines and, you know, maybe just do it on the quarter end. Maybe that's even better than monthly, because that way we get a quarter report, we can see where we're at. Because I'm bouncing around looking at all this stuff too, and, revised budget that's in there and the date, and so I would like to see us more look through some type of report. But it could be 6, 8 lines, whatever, as to what we're doing on the financial of it, instead of you spending all the time on doing all this. One little narrative would certainly probably save us and you time.
What are the thoughts of the rest of the board?
Well, I think, for me, the biggest highlight, the biggest thing that I'm looking for when I'm trying to look through all these, and I would agree, these numbers make my eyes cross. What I'm most concerned about are what are the highlights? Are there concerns? Are there things that we need to shift around, make quick adjustments? Where are we, doing well? What, are there different items in here that we need to, like I said, move around or change or address? Are there different funds that are running super low that we're gonna need to, what are our trends and projections? That's my biggest concern, is just making sure, and we get those detailed claims every week on what we're spending. So it's not like we're not seeing what's being spent, but I think overall, I think, I can't make heads or tails of all of these, and I like to see them and send them to us, keep that going. But I think, I would agree with you, Jim, that, for me personally, it's more helpful if I get a concise, where are we at? Where are you worried? Because if you're worried, we need to be worried.
And then, if I may, quarterly is that way. In first quarter, you can say, we got to start looking at this. Second quarter, we got to really start looking at this. Third quarter, it's too late, but we got to get going. So instead of waiting until the April and May report, we're way behind here, we're in trouble. So that's my take.
Yeah, I wouldn't say you have to, if there's some trouble, we should know about it sooner than don't wait till 3 months from now. But yeah, how do you feel about that? Because,
I can add a narrative. I do that for other districts. I have a narrative sheet that goes with that. That's not a problem. For me to create these reports is pretty simple. It's a software the district purchases, and I just upload our data into it, and it spits out all these reports. So I'm not hand creating these every month.
Sure. And I don't think it's a bad idea to have them in there, but honestly, I couldn't. That's why we're relying on your expertise to be able to make.
And maybe instead of all the pages, I just do the 2 summary pages that I mostly reference when I talk.
I think that'd be great, actually. That might save a lot of pages too.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. I think the narrative would be helpful, just, for, those highlights of like, this is something that is going unexpectedly well, this is something that's going unexpectedly poorly, or, things that require attention. I think it is good to have it on a monthly basis, though. I wouldn't want to go to quarterly, just because I feel like then, we'd be saying, why didn't you tell us about it? I feel like monthly is better for us to, kind of be aware of kind of the trends and how things are going. As long as that's not a burden on you. Yeah, and I don't think the narrative would need to be super complicated. That's just, like that kind of highlighting the things that are, hey, pay attention to this line in particular. Because I do read through it and I understand how to read financials, but it's a lot of numbers and a lot of lines, so they all start to run together a little bit. So, knowing where to focus our attention, I think would be helpful. Yeah.
I'm pretty much, I think the report that you gave us verbally today would be nice if we had that in writing as a summary or narrative, whatever you want to call it. I do like to have the supporting documents if I want to pursue looking further, but I probably wouldn't. So I don't want to see it overdone, but if it's not a lot of work, I like having the supporting documents. I think it's really difficult is trying to figure out how to rotate this in the computer.
To read them?
To read them when I'm coming off the agenda here a little bit and stuff that I eventually work through each time. But I like the idea of this is where we're at. We're above budget, below budget compared to previous years. This is why, and have that in a written report. And I think it would go very well if it's all in writing and
Okay.
You maybe wouldn't have to read it, but you could if others want to. I think that's a great idea to streamline it, just get it.
Yeah, a few bullet points. Mhm.
And that might be something, Lisa, if you're listening, that we could kind of work out too, is if the reports were as an extra instead of being in the packet, just so, you know, when we're getting, the people who are getting them fully printed out, you know, you can reference it if you need to, but it's not necessarily
That's a great
over
idea.
there.
And as a treasurer, I should have probably talked to Jackie, and I apologize for not letting you know ahead of time. My thought on it, that just makes it, I think, it easier for the whole board to get an idea as to, all of a sudden, hey, we're down in this area, we gotta start focusing on this, we gotta look at this. And here's our plan for that
Mhm.
too. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Are we on to food service, looks like? I know, is her last name Pena or Pena?
Pena.
Jess. I know she's on the call. Hi.
Hi, how's it going? My name is Jess Pena. I don't think I've met quite a few of you, so it's so nice to meet you guys. I'm here to talk about school lunch prices for next year. Lisa has a table that she's going to pull up here in a second, and I'm just going to kind of go through the bullet points of why it's so important for us to raise our school lunch prices for next year. So I use a tool called the Paid Lunch Equity Tool, and it's used to project the school lunch prices. And the USDA puts out this tool every year for us to utilize and abide by the rules of school lunch prices. In the chart, you can see the last few years of school lunch prices. So we have the 2017-18 prices, 18-19, 19-20, and 22-23 proposed prices. So I propose that we raise the prices 10 cents across the board. So for breakfast, it would be $1.70. For adult breakfast, it's $2. Milk, we would leave at 50 cents. And then for the lunch, we would raise the prices for elementary full paid to $2.80. The middle school, we would raise it to $2.90. The high school full paid would be $3.05. And then the adult lunch prices have not been released yet. The state would release those in July, but it looks like it'd be likely to be $4.25. And then the milk would remain at 50 cents again for the lunch. The intent of the PLE tool is to ensure that the paid lunch prices are sufficient to cover the cost of paid meals or otherwise provide enough funds to support paid meal costs. And unfortunately, our COVID waivers expired the last day of school, which was June 2nd, 2022. So next school year is going to go back to what we saw as normal school lunches. So it's going to be imperative that we work with families and make sure that anybody that would like to fill out the free and reduced forms, that they do get those done in the beginning of the school year. MD has not really released the 2022-23 applications yet, but when they do get released, we are going to have them up on the website. And then I'm actually working with Ann Robertson as well to kind of put out a media release and just really get the word out there that the lunches will not be free like they have been the past few years when COVID was big in the schools. Yes, Karsten.
I'm not sure if you know the answer yet, but will students have a grace period in September like they do in typical years?
Yes. So any families that had filled out the free and reduced applications last school year, they have a grace period until October 15th. So all of their statuses, like if they're free status or reduced status, will carry over until October 15th.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Jim?
Good evening, Jess. Twofold question. Are you seeing any increased costs due to inflation and price of fuel?
That's a great question. We are seeing increased costs to inflation through products, but we had just secured an RFP for our vendor for next school year, and they did not add fuel costs to that, which is awesome. And it's going to stay like that for the next few years at least. So we're not seeing the fuel costs, but then we also did have the cooks contract signed, so they all got more money. So that's going to be something that's going to make our lunch prices go higher too because of the higher wages.
Is 10 cents as you're proposing enough to meet the increased costs that you're seeing?
Yes, with the tool, it's really handy dandy. It does kind of all the inflation and all that. It's all wrapped into one Excel sheet that USDA comes out with. So it does it all on its own, and I just have to plug in the prices. The prices that we used were from the 2019-2020 school year, because as you guys know, we didn't have paid meals last year, and the last few years we haven't. So I had to use the data from 2019-2020 to get that cost.
Thank you.
Is there, I'll hold on to this for a second. Msba, go ahead.
No, finish talking. I'll wait.
I was just wondering, with that application for free and reduced lunch, if that is something that, I know we always struggle in getting those forms back, and I know that it's part of like a whole packet of things that parents have to fill out in those first days of school. If there would be a benefit to try to get it out sooner, if that would, or to get the information out now, if parents would be able to like download the form or fill it out now, or anything like that, if they know their kids are coming back for school, especially if they don't have one on file and they're concerned about it, if that's at all something we could do or would be worth doing. Just what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we do have a software, PayPams, that you can fill out the application online. There's a link on our website that has that. But also at the, like, whenever I can, when I first started working here in January, I got with Ann Robertson, and she actually put the link on the newsletters that she sent out weekly as well. So it's going to be important for me to work with her to kind of get it out there. And I think it is a lot easier to fill out online too. I agree with that totally. So, and then we have other languages. We have the application in other languages as well that they can request. So I know there's an English and a Spanish one online.
Okay, great. Yeah, if that could be part of that marketing, if, you know, letting the parents know about the increase and also having that in there right away, hopefully that would encourage people to fill that out more. All right, Ms. Buck, go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay, so as we know that COVID has really ripped through the, worldwide. A lot of families are not where they were financially before the pandemic. This worries me a little bit because I do not this is actually kind of a trauma response if we don't feed the kids because of what happened to our people. So I worry about and then, you talk about getting online. Indigenous people we don't get online. Most of us don't get online to research things. And even if you tell us to fill things out, we still don't. We're very social people that actually need that. Here's an example. Lydia Bailey was a saint for me as a mom and coming, back into the traumatized system with my kids now. And she walked me through things. She helped me do everything. And she reminded me because my trauma, when trauma is activated, you don't think, you're not listening when people tell you things. So when you have somebody walking you through, so I'm just going to assume that's just not with Indigenous people to Turtle Island. That's like all traumatized people now, because it don't discriminate. Trauma don't discriminate against people. So I worry about what happens to our families and our kids coming and we're not communicating effectively to them to get them to understand, and their kids are coming into our district and we have hungry kids. That's what I worry about.
I know that social workers have reached out and identified some of those students that really could benefit from the free and reduced applications. So maybe in the future, I should talk with social workers, secretaries, anybody that they think the students need that extra help. I could certainly make myself available as well.
Well, I would think the liaisons would be appropriate folks to reach out as well and connect with the families. Make sure that everyone has access to a form or an online application or the physical form, and be that person that Nikki mentioned to help our families walk through this. And I think, just as you work with Ann Robertson, and putting out information, I think it just needs to be made clear that we've got people that can help walk you through this process. We can meet you at a time and a place and help you walk through this process. And I know that there are lots of people in our district that are happy to walk with our families to get that done.
That's a great idea. Thank you for that.
And I see on the agenda item that there's the recommendation to have a motion to approve this, but since this is a workshop, we can't do that, but we have, of course, our regular meeting coming up in approximately 23 minutes. So we could add this to the agenda for that and
actually, that was my fault for having the recommendation. It's planned for 2 weeks from now.
oh, okay.
So we wanted a discussion and then we come back in 2 weeks.
Okay.
So it's ready to go in 2 weeks.
Okay, sounds good. Hold on to that then. Okay, any other questions, comments, thoughts about this? All right, thank you, Ms. Pena.
Thank you.
I do think, just as a side note, Nikki's right, like families, we're used to not having to pay lunches for a couple of years, and this is gonna be a significant chunk of money that families may not be anticipating. So getting the word out sooner rather than later, so families can start setting aside some money or thinking about, the people who may not have qualified for free and reduced lunch, there may be a whole different group, a subgroup of people that may not have ever thought about filling out the forms that would now meet the criteria. So that should also be a part of the marketing program that we'll be putting out, because I do fear the same thing, Nikki, that, what do you do? Like, you've got $50 and do you put it in your kid's lunch account, or do you go get groceries for the rest of the family for the week? I would hate for our families to ever have to make that decision. And we've got resources and support for that. So if we all work together, I think we'll be able to meet the needs. It's just a matter of getting the word out and making sure that people know that there is help available.
I think the key is getting the word out repeatedly. The old saying is, you have to hear something 7 or 8 times before you actually think about, oh, I should do that. And that's where Ann Robertson will come into play. We can talk about it wherever, but through Facebook and through our newsletter.
Mm-hmm. And maybe a mass mailing even.
Whatever needs to be done. But you're right, was it the USDA that had allocated the federal dollars for the last 2 years, year and a half, 2 years?
Mhm, 2.5
for lunches,
years.
which was tremendous, but all things come to an end, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, I believe we are on to our potential changes to the organizational chart.
Or we have next year's budget.
Oh, I'm sorry. Got it, okay. I gotta scroll better.
All right, I have a draft of next year's budget for you to peruse. Some of the highlights, you can see we are using about $439,000 of our general fund balance. The board had voted in April or early May, I can't remember exactly which meeting, to use fund balance to fund the color tuning and other portions of the LED light retrofit that were not eligible for long-term facilities maintenance out of fund balance. And then also when we talked budget reductions, we decided to keep going ahead with the $200,000 for permanent substitutes for another year for the additional ones we had in place this year due to absences and inability to find subs. So that is what that decrease is there. You can see in total out of the general fund, it's about $444,000. There is a couple places where we're also spending down a little bit of fund balance. The assigned funds are assigned for student activities, and then the student activities up above the ones that are not in the assigned fund balance, but are considered in the student activities restricted account. Food service, as we talked about, as we go back to paid lunches, the reimbursement rate is lower than it was on the summer food program. So I'm not predicting as much money there. And also we are predicting increases in our labor prices, and we did budget-wise predict some in our supply costs. We're hoping they don't come to fruition. As Jess said, they are working with our cooperative to get some vendor prices in place. And that will use, I was very conservative on revenues and very, I don't know what you want to say, conservative on expenses, so they're higher than projected. So we're looking to use quite a bit of food service fund balance for next year. We'll kind of see how that plays out as the year gets started, how many meals we're serving, and things like that. That's a lot of what's hard to predict right now, is because we have kids that are going into 2nd and 3rd grade who've never had to pay for a meal. And how do we quantify that? How do we quantify, I mean, we're serving lots of meals right now because they're free. What's the hit going to be when they have to go back to paid? You can see community ed there. In our construction fund, we have the proceeds from the bond for the LED retrofit coming in and going out. Those are probably the highlights for the budget. Again, there are many other pages in here that break the budget out. I put the April report in here in case you want to look at it in those categories and compare it to how we've budgeted and what the actual expenses are for the prior couple years to kind of see where the trend is. I'm going to scroll pretty fast here because there's a lot of pages of that. I'm going to flip this. Yep. I also put the proposed budget into our 5-year financial forecast. So you can see how that looks as we project out these numbers into future years. Right now, it's looking like about a $1.6 million deficit for the next school year. We'll keep tracking that. That goes based on our enrollment projections we have currently, and we may in the fall, after everything gets settled, want to revise those again.
What's our projected fund balance at the end of this year? At the end of next year, that's with this budget.
At the end of this budget, all or just the unassigned?
All.
All is about 7.4 million.
That includes food service.
No, that is all general fund, unrestricted and restricted. And flip back the other way now. The next few pages are enrollment projections for the next 5 years. So it starts with enrollment by grade for this school year, what it looks like for the next projection year, changes by grade for the next projection year, and then some graphs showing how we have a slow but steady decline.
And these ones going out past next year is based on like the population of the community.
It's based on the trend of birth within our zip code and then just trend on student movement.
Sure.
What could be inflating these, and I'm a little leery to say this, is because of the large decrease we had in the 2021 school year with COVID. So that may be influencing the trend going forward because of that large decrease.
Okay.
But we're going to have to wait a couple years to see if it is or not.
Right.
I'd rather be under and be reporting to you, we have 15 more students than
Right.
the other way.
Yes. I agree.
So it's just more graphs on enrollment. The next piece is a piece Ms. Tower asked for, and it is the staffing by building. I split it by bargaining group just because that's how when I budget, I tally it out by bargaining group to make sure I have everybody. So this is the projected staffing for next year. My hope is I'll be able to keep this up, so then I'll have the projected staffing for next year, and then a couple pages behind it, I'll have the change from the prior year. I just, this is the first year I've done it, so maybe in a year we'll have that. And I believe that's the end of, and then at the back of the report, I have the capital projects that are slated. The LTFM I have at the back of this is the one we approved in April. Alan and Kevin will be coming in the next month to approve the one for the next school year. So this will be updated once we have that next approval.
I think we have that on our schedule for, maybe it's the July meeting.
It is typically.
Yeah, it has to be approved by July 31st.
Yeah, July 18th, that's the plan for the LTFM.
Is there any questions on the draft budget? Anything else you'd like to see in it? Yes.
Just want to clarify, I assume you're using revenues from the state based on the current, last year's budgeting to us and projecting the number and going forward when you're going out 2 years from now, what are you using?
I'm using 2% increases throughout the 5-year projection.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Just making sure, I assumed as much, but.
And no new money since the legislature adjourned without new money.
And how does all that ESSER, we've added people and things to what we're doing every day with our ESSER funds, but those don't last forever.
No.
So, how are we gonna?
When we're looking at our 5-year projection and you see the 1.5 million, we're going to need to reduce. Part of that is loss of ESSER funds.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to make decisions on, do we continue the positions we added and discontinue something else? Or do we discontinue the new positions?
And can it be possible to like asterisk those so that we can keep track of all, you probably have figured out a way to keep track of all of those positions or things that we've added, but I think that, if we've added something because of those extra funds, at least I'd like to be, if there's going to be things that we're going to look at and say, oh my goodness, why didn't we ever have that position before?
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a way to highlight all of those things as we're going through the budget and going to have to make really hard decisions in the future, I think it'd be good to highlight those things that we added because of the ESSER funds. That would help me, not necessarily to say, oh, well, we added that because of ESSER funds, check it off. No, I want to know that we've added that and it's had added value. Is kind of where I'm going with that.
I think that's gonna be down the road, a whole 1 or 2 hour workshop, a 1 hour workshop several times as we go forward.
Yeah, we might have
ESSER
to.
funds, that's what we have to eliminate ESSER funds. Now what are we gonna do?
Right.
Yeah. Hot topic.
It's gonna be tough, yeah. The other thing is, just for my own organization, those 3 or 4 pages of staff divided up by bargaining groups, I would really love to have a hard copy of those. I mean, for those of us who are in the negotiations team, that would be really great to have those printed out for us. So if somebody could just do that, that'd be great.
What were you looking at here?
Well, I don't know what page number it is.
It starts on page 17 of this document.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think it would just be really helpful for us. I'm a visual person. I like, when we're bargaining, if we could bring those to the table so that we can see the numbers, that'd be helpful for me.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
Okay, now organizational chart.
Great. So over the past few years, I've heard a lot of comments or suggestions from a variety of board members and administrators and others. And so some possibilities are being presented here for consideration. Yeah, obviously we're not looking for board approval tonight, but I thought it was a good starting point. And I'll just highlight quickly the three primary things that I think we should be looking at. First of all, the question is whether we should require a principal's license for the Director of Teaching and Learning. If we did require a principal's license, you can see the different positions that person could supervise. I will add though that we have some work to do with technology. And so I did include some IT systems administrative work under the Director of Teaching and Learning, but I think we need to rethink that. And that could come at a subsequent board meeting. It doesn't have to be done right now because, we have technology infrastructure that we really have to address, and we also have the technology integration work that we want to address. So if we did require a principal's license for that position, you can see some significant supervision responsibilities. Right now, the Director of Teaching and Learning is part of the District Directors Agreement, and it does not, in the agreement, it does not say the person has to be licensed as a principal. And so the salary for the next person we hire will still be in the same range. However, if we do require the principal's license, it'll probably be towards the top of the range, compared to where we're at right now. And the reason this is so pertinent, of course, is that Ms. Whitcomb accepted another position. And so as we're searching for candidates, it'll be helpful to know if we will require that principal's license or not.
So right now, what is managed by that position without the principal's license?
No direct supervision.
Okay.
But Ms. Whitcomb gives work direction to a number of people, like the flight path coordinator, PBS coaches, and some other positions that directly impact student learning, but there's no official supervisory responsibilities. In previous years, actually Kathy Radner, Jill Jezierski, and Beth Morgan had some supervisory responsibilities when doing that role. The second area is being recommended for consideration because I've heard a lot of feedback about whether we should have a consultant on staff supervising our employees. And so I've thought about this, and this is a possibility that we could implement. Right now, Jackie supervises a number of folks in the district, and this scenario shows that the superintendent would directly supervise the human resources manager. The human resources manager then would supervise the payroll coordinator and manage clinic services. A lot of school districts will have the HR department oversee those particular positions. So this isn't made up. It's kind of a payroll function instead of a finance function. District administrative assistant could supervise a number of people in the district office. We considered some other possibilities too, as far as selecting someone to supervise those positions, but in the end, thought that the district administrative assistant would be the best go-to person, especially since, well, in this case, it's Lisa, could
learn about some of the systems, for example, that Debbie Lundberg and Melinda Johnson currently do. So she could be the automatic backup as the supervisor in case one of them leaves. So I thought that was a very good fit. I do think that the business manager would continue to supervise the accounts payable clerk because it's just so closely tied. And then would manage the transportation contracts. So currently that's kind of a split role between the superintendent and business manager. That would remain with the business manager's realm. And then the last part would be a significant change for our communications manager. I think that she is perfectly positioned to serve as a primary legislative liaison for the school board and the school district, kind of lead the education planning efforts, referendum planning work, marketing work, like what we were talking about earlier. And so we could shift those responsibilities to Ms. Robertson. And, she is definitely open to leading those efforts, and I think it'd be a good match for the position. So these are the things that we've been kicking around at the district level. Before we went too far, I wanted to bring this document to the board to get some feedback so we can continue to refine.
Why would education planning be a good fit under communications manager versus director of teaching and learning?
Yeah, it's, or the superintendent, really three different particular areas. Education planning deals not only with teaching and learning and some of those initiatives, but also, the operations of the school district in terms of leading those efforts or at least coordinating them. The reason I included it as part of this is that I asked her to at least coordinate the efforts of the educational planner. And so she, especially after, I took another position, I wanted someone to kind of take that lead, and I asked A.M. Robertson to do that. So it wouldn't mean that she would be in charge of the overall plan or developing the plan or even implementing the plan, but right now she would serve as sort of the link with the educational planner. So it's not an expansive increase in responsibility. It's really coordinating with the planner to make that happen.
In this particular instance, that makes sense, but I think to see it on the org chart in there doesn't track for me, just because it seems like it's a more logical fit under teaching and learning.
Yeah, one thing I could do, I'm assuming that the board is even willing to consider some of this, would be just to make it very clear
that's the
that's the connection, that it's not being responsible for doing the entire plan. I agree with you that should be run by others, like the superintendent, director of teaching.
Ms. Howard?
Thank you. I'm extremely encouraged by this. So I just want to say, having looked it over a few times and like Anna, kind of thinking, now where does this go or where does that go? Apart from a few things that could maybe be shifted, this is a good framework for anybody coming into the district to kind of look at, and then whatever their experience brings, they can play with it how they want with the board's support. But yeah, I really appreciate this. I think it leaves us with a good map.
And
So
it came about
that.
because of your actually comments from everyone in this room. So it's really kind of combining a lot of different efforts.
Ms. Rowe?
I was just gonna kind of piggyback on both of your comments. I do think the education planning needs to be housed other than under the communications manager. It really needs to be housed or, taken over somewhere different. But yes, I agree with you that, for what you were talking about, Superintendent Anderson, I think that makes the best sense. And I am also very encouraged by this too. I've been on the personnel committee for several years, and we've talked about organizational charts and planning and changing positions for a really long time. I really like how this sets up. I feel more comfortable actually with this plan. I really think it makes so much sense to have a principal license because we don't have enough money to hire an assistant principal, or not assistant superintendent. That will never probably come to fruition here, but the superintendent in our district absolutely needs more hands-on support. And I think this does that when our director of teaching and learning can take on some of those supervisory positions. So I think that makes complete sense. I am also more comfortable with the business manager and how you've laid that out. I think that makes a lot of sense as well. Ms. Paradis is a rock star and we love her. We couldn't do the work that we do in our district without her. And this gives her more opportunity to just focus on what she needs to focus on too, and not be the supervisor of people who she may or may not be interacting with on a daily basis because of the time constraints that she has on her schedule. So this feels really good to me, and I'm excited to see how this pans out, actually. Mr. Bryant?
Thank you. Couple questions. I see you promoting some people to supervisory position. Have you costed that out? What the cost is for that?
No. And so that would be, assuming that the board is willing to consider possible changes, that'll be the next phase that I would work on this week. And then that would be included in any significant change to the org chart.
Okay, I'll probably be the bearer of bad news here. So I like the idea that you're working on something and finally taking some suggestions that we put forward. And I slightly disagree with my comrade over there, Ms. Rowe. I think we could find some way to finance a assistant superintendent if we wanted to go that route. I am interested in what the cost is based upon the next person coming in, what he or she may want to do. We're going to hamstring that person by promoting people, by paying them, and now that person may say, well, this is why I want to go in this direction. I think we, like somebody said, share it with the new person, the interim person coming in, and go from there. But I'm not in favor of changing anything at this point without so near to a new person coming in. And so it's great discussion, great ideas, working around it, but I'm not willing to say, yay, we're going to do this at our next meeting, because I think we need to. If I was coming in, I'd say, well, why are you doing this now? It's been 3 years since people brought it up. Why are you doing it now? When he or she's coming in here, I think we just keep working on it, and this is what we're proposing and looking at doing down the road, but I'm not in favor of voting on it in the next regular scheduled meeting.
Is it fair for me to say that at least you're interested in costing out the possibilities and
Yeah.
considering in the future, and I realize that there'd have to be some decisions made, but that really it's a question of timing. And really, I've been thinking about that too, in terms of when decisions should be made. And so if at least I can do the prep work, and then the board can decide timing, for example, the director of teaching and learning, I really think should be hired by the interim superintendent, not by me. So all that kind of plays into it. Of course, with, hiring, the longer we wait, the tougher it's going to be, but still I believe strongly in that the interims or the next superintendent should be the one hiring.
And I'll agree with everyone else about the educational planning.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah, also I had something about marketing. I'll double check Ms. Robertson's position description and make sure that marketing of the school district is highlighted as one of the responsibilities. And I'll make it clear that she would serve as the link with the educational planner, to coordinate the effort, but not make decisions about that.
Ms. Howard?
Yeah, I just know when you start a new position and you sit down at your desk, you go, where is everything, right? Like where do I start first? What are we looking at? They call the board chair, they can sit with the full board, sit with people that are still in the office, but with everything being so sparse, people leaving, changing positions, it's gonna go fast and furious. So whether or not we agree or push this forward as a recommendation or, is something that we're gonna go with or not go with, I just think it's extremely critical that the new person coming in has a roadmap of what, what the direction was that the board was thinking with your input, but also bringing, like I said, their experience. And I want to go back to that education planning. I understand what you're saying from an organizational piece in terms of her being able to connect with and set up meetings or set up roundtables. Maybe it's not education planning, that's the title of it. Maybe it's communications, whatever that, they're the director of that, but like communication liaison for, different entities that come into the school, because what it sounds like with the marketing, with those pieces, that is the perfect person to connect with, and then that person connects everybody else.
Yeah, kind of a way, sometimes I create community engagement.
Yeah,
Making sure that people's voices are heard, a wide variety.
Yeah.
Making sure everyone's at the table.
so it's maybe just the term education planning, but not necessarily taking away what that actually is. You can be creative with all kinds of education planning terminology, but I do understand everybody else's responsibilities. They're pretty steep. And so bringing that piece in, as somebody says, the educational planner wants to meet on this day, who can make it? This is what the topics are going to be, this is what the agenda is going to be, kind of the liaison or the conduit back and forth between the administrative team and the district. That's more where my head was thinking when I saw it, so I just want to put that out there.
Ms. Rowe?
I was just gonna say that I do think that we do need to make a decision sooner rather than later, though, about adding that principal's license onto that job description, only because that position is gonna be posted soon. And so I think, these are big overarching questions that we need to answer sooner rather than later. And maybe we don't say these are the exact positions that this person is going to supervise, but they at least have that ability or option, because we have to post for that job soon. We need to get that person hired and ready for the fall. So there's going to be a lot of changes with an interim superintendent and then a new director of teaching and learning. That's a huge change for a district with those two positions kind of up in the air. So I think the more roadmap and ideas we can put down on paper and options, leave us options, the better it is. If we don't put that in a job description, it really limits us in what we can do there.
Mr. Dirks?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Jim here on this, considering the idea of assistant superintendent in that position. It's bothered me that we don't have an assistant superintendent for a number of years. I'm wondering, yes, there's probably going to be an additional cost, but it would be probably an entry-level superintendent that hasn't been licensed for a long period of time. If we have that person as assistant superintendent, maybe there'd be other roles that could be added to that position too. So I'm very open to cost it out. I'd like to say cost it out three ways. The way we're doing it right now, cost it out with a principal's license and cost it out with the assistant superintendent. And I'm, in my vision, looking at it to be more of an entry-level superintendent licensure person coming in to do that. If we would have had this in place this way now, we wouldn't be under the gun so much on what we're doing the rest of the way through here. So I think we're probably too late to try to do this position with assistant superintendent right away. But if we could, that maybe be another way for us to do a more detailed search for your replacement. So I'm just throwing ideas up there, making no sense at all really, but I'm trying to think this through as the best way it is. But if we're gonna go with a licensure for principal license, it makes some sense to really consider the idea of assistant superintendent. Also,
I could change it to say require principals and or superintendent's license, so that we target, particular people, or at least encourage more to apply, something like that. So,
and if, depending on how it will all proceed, maybe obtain superintendent's licensure within 6 months or something, if you were to post it. I don't know, I just don't know. I'm trying to look at this objectively and trying to figure out where it should go, but I think we've been needing more at the top end help for you over the years, and so, yeah, I've rambled on long enough. Thank you.
Ms. Howard?
Thank you. Who all had input to helping you put this together? That's my last wondering.
Not enough yet. So this came about actually from a lot of conversations or discussions with everyone at this table. I've talked to district directors and principals over a period of years. But what I would like to do is the next phase, again, I wanted to see if this is even a possibility, and I think it might be. And so then I'll take it back through the stronger chain of building administrators, district directors, and other key leaders. So yeah, that part is still to come.
I'm just curious, like, I didn't know where you were at in the steps, but that's okay. Thank you.
Okay. So, looks like in the packet, we have the request from Sherry Johnson.
Oh,
That's
yes.
not like on the list of the agenda.
Wasn't on the agenda.
Yeah, it's kind
Right.
of part of the administrative reports. I got that after I posted this already. My suggestion is to bring that to the workshop in 2 weeks.
Okay.
So that we can invite Sherry to really talk about it. There's some, some questions that I have still, and, I'm sure that the people here will have. So we'll have that in 2 weeks, and then we'll really talk. Well, we'll talk about some possible revisions to what we just talked about, as well as special ed changes. That's because Marcia Walker resigned, and so we need to replace that position.
Okay. Then we are on to referendum planning.
So we've discussed operating levy referendum budgets, for a period of time. And this might be a decision that should wait until July, when we have the new superintendent in place. And I would totally understand if that's what you're thinking. That might be the right thing to do so that we can kind of push forward together. My suggestion, at least for consideration, is that, instead of looking for an increase in the operating levy referendum this November, it's just to stay even where we are now, $16.50 per pupil, and then ask for probably like a 5 or 6 year extension in the current operating levy referendum. I get a feeling from just the discussions we have that I think most people here are in line with that. So if that was the case, I would certainly be willing to work with bond counsel to set up the resolutions, but we do have time. So if you'd like to wait until July to kind of make that decision, that's maybe preferable or at least understandable. But I just wanted to present that if I'm the one asked to give the recommendation, that's what I would suggest in 2 weeks. But I want to lay it out there so you guys can decide. Now, on the flip side, Ann Robertson shared a really insightful perspective, I think about a month ago, in terms of looking, instead of at the dollar amount per pupil, looking at the actual tax impact on homeowners and businesses. And that's a compelling argument. It really is. It would justify an increase in the per pupil allotment and therefore help our budget. My only concern is that in a midterm election, when there are going to be so many things talked about, so many political perspectives being shared, that argument could be lost in the shuffle. So if you want to wait, we can wait, or if you want me to develop resolutions, I can certainly do that.
Ms. Howard?
Thank you. Did Ms. Robertson say it would be better to do it sooner or later?
I did not ask her that specific question.
Because I understand completely where you're coming from and having, you have all done, not you, have you? No, not on this board. But, and Ann and I, but Pam and Arlen have done this referendum work before, and Jennifer, obviously. I want to know what's going to be the most impactful for the community in the transition of hiring a new superintendent and other people being hired. Is it going to get lost if we discuss it now? Or is it going to be able to be elevated as we discuss these changes now? Or would it be better for the board to put everybody in place as much as we can and then discuss it? I just don't want to be behind the 8 ball when we discuss it. And in the two things that you're talking about for pupil or tax impact, I think maybe the board should have a little bit more conversation about that, and maybe Anne can come to a meeting and kind of discuss what her thoughts are around that.
Ms. Robertson is on the call. I don't know if you want to put her on the spot or not, or we could have this, the next workshop agenda.
We just added, I don't want to make a decision. But we're 6:16, so.
And the next workshop was sort of canceled or repurposed to be for interviews. That was the plan for June 20th. So there really isn't another workshop until July. So that would be after or around when we're having a new interim superintendent, hopefully.
In that case, well, yeah, it's really up to you to let me know what you want me to do, if anything.
Mr. Dirks is in the queue, so.
Yeah, well, we're probably not at a point where we want to be, others may not be wanting to discuss numbers and when we go, but I'm going to go on record right now that only thing I really want to support is a referendum with the existing amount that we got, not $1 more, not $1 less, because I want it to be simple, not complicated for somebody to understand. And then try to get some additional years. That's the big thing. I'd like to see us maybe shoot for 8 years or something, but that's the thought. The big thing though is I want to see us shoot for the same number that's here. And that's not necessarily that we would live with that for the next 8 years, because we can always go back and try to do another referendum for an additional $100, $200, whatever, in a future year. But I would like very much to see this put through and at least have us on somewhat solid financial position before I leave this board. So that's where I'm coming from on it. Certainly if it fails this year, we can try to do it next year, but we're going to be a standalone election next year. And that's going to be a lot more discussion potentially in the whole process. I think if we just go in and say we want to continue operating the way we are financially, I think the public can support it in amongst the rest of the existing stuff. And that's where I'm coming from. So thank you.
Mr. Bryant?
Thank you. I'm agreeing with Arlen about the same dollar amount. And I look at our next July workshop is July would be 18th.
Mm-hmm.
So we're less than 4 months before the election. Now we're still in the planning process. It's going to take another some time. We need to get out and speak. We need to promote. We need to be visible. We need to be diligent and having correct information. So waiting 6 more weeks for us to decide something as important as a referendum seems to me not our best use of that 6 weeks. So I suggest we have a discussion what we can do to fit something in sooner than later, because you get less than 4 months out now. My math is, what am I, 14, 15 weeks till election. So a lot of time, or not much time there, but we're giving up 42 days. So yeah, get something going on it.
Ms. Rowe?
I agree with both of you gentlemen. I think that's, when we went for an increase, it was an extremely huge time-consuming commitment to work on that. And not that it was all of our job. We had a fabulous community push for that. But that takes months and months of organizing, and we don't have that. So if we were going to do any sort of increase, there's no way we could do that by November. I agree with you, Arlen, that we're just, we can always increase it later, but I think the word is right now, people are strapped. And, you know, $4 plus gas is eating away at all of our budgets, and to even say $1 more is gonna push people over the edge. So, yeah, and we need time. And even if we don't have a workshop time, even if we could talk about it during the actual agenda of our school board meetings, you know, maybe we just have to add it on there, or add an extra workshop somewhere so that we can move this along, because we are gonna have to put in a little extra work since we have a big hire to make, and we've got a lot of things going on, so we may have to add some meetings, and I'm okay with that. Or make some of our other school board meetings longer. I mean, I've been here till time before. Not that I want to. But we do have some work to do, and you're right, 42 days is a long time to wait.
I agree that I would, as much as it would be great to have an increase, I think that it's easier sell with the amount of time that we have to stay with the same amount. And I would like to see us move forward on that. I think I understand the perspective of waiting for the next superintendent to, you know, be the one acting on it, but they're going to have a lot of other things that they have to take care of. And I think this is something that we need to be moving on. So I would be in favor of you preparing the resolutions for us to, you know, vote on as soon as possible.
Does anyone disagree with that?
No.
I don't disagree.
Okay.
What about Nikki Evans?
Oh,
It is not disagree. I think that's really wise.
Okay, what I'll do tomorrow is contact our bond council to develop the resolutions. I'll choose a length of time, like 5 years or 8 years, and that can be changed, you know, during the discussion and approval of the resolution. So I'll get that, and with the goal of hopefully we'll get a quick turnaround time so that we can have it on the agenda for June 20th. That would be the best.
And
I think that'd be great.
the current one expires after 23, 24.
Correct, yeah, so we
So
need
this will
to,
be kicking off, and then the next 5 years will end up again on an even number of years.
If you did 5.
Huh?
If you did 5.
If you did 5, if you did 7, it would be an even number year 2 or something, but 8 would be an odd again. Okay. I'm open to even. But
yeah, so there are some technical changes because we'd actually stop the current referendum and then have it, you know, this one for 5 or 6 years. So that's why we have bond council, but we'll be going on that right away.
Would they give us language that would go into the voters, or when does that develop?
No, that would be a communications function, so that, sorry, hold on.
Fascinating.
We think it's motion.
yes, it's,
walk out there farther.
Now it's not doing anything.
Walk out there farther.
I'll start jogging.
There you
oh,
go. We
there's
got one.
some lights.
Maybe we can have buildings and grounds figure out how to keep the lights on.
Yeah, we've got some ballast problems too, so sometimes you'll see flickers
That's right,
here.
we're getting new lights here.
Yeah, we're getting new lights, so.
This is why new lights around though.
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't raise my hand, I'm sorry, but, I guess I'm concerned, whatever we do and how it proceeds, that to have language that is, with whatever happens with how that town council does stuff, that we create language that's simple and I don't know what the right word is.
Just use the same language.
Simple word, but it's gonna have to be different, because it's gonna say we're gonna have to cancel one and start another one,
Yeah.
so.
Use the same language, just add a couple of links.
Yeah, we'll be able to, yeah, and that's, Ann Robertson, you know, will take the lead of that as far as.
Once we get there, but bond council can structure things maybe to help us, what is that, it can work that way. That's what I'm getting to.
I'm glad you brought that up because as far as communications, I would be really hesitant to say that we can fulfill all the promises that we approved 4 years ago. We can do it during this referendum time. We are doing it and we will do it. but in terms of another 5 or 8 years, I'm not gonna recommend that. Because we have declining enrollment, so that's messaging issue.
For another day.
For another day, that's right.
Okay. Next, we have a few policies that were MSBA revisions. So we had the red lines, I believe, as an extra. The non-red line are the ones that are in like the packet. And I just have to get a different window open. If I recall correctly, they were pretty simple. Changes.
And certainly this would be first reading for the policy, so we'll bring it back to a subsequent board meeting for second reading and then approval. So even if you have not had a chance to read through them yet, there will be plenty of time between now and the next board meeting.
Right away, does anyone have any questions, concerns, issues with them?
I like when MSBA does it.
Yes. Nice to have their expertise, for sure. Okay, if no one has anything to discuss about those, we'll just leave those on for second readings at an upcoming meeting. All right, and I don't believe we have any other topics.
Just a question.
Yeah.
Just peeking at the agenda for the regular meeting. Actually, we don't have a special school board meeting, it's a regular school board meeting.
Right.
I was chatting with somebody from the county, and this person is very knowledgeable about it, says there's some federal regulation or law that states you can meet virtually yet without disclosing places where you're at until July sometime, and expects that to be extended. Can somebody check with MSBA to see what this is? Because somebody in this case, somebody could be ill, but, ill enough with some type of something that they can't be around people, and now we're gonna make them open their doors for people to come in. So I guess that was the reason why. So can you check that out to see, because that was like, oh, that's interesting, so.
Yeah, we can certainly check that out before the next board meeting.
All right, so we're at 6:28. Oh, Lisa.
I'd be happy to check on MSBA with that if it has changed, Jim, but I would also like to remind you that since we do have a board member attending virtually this evening, all votes need to be a roll call vote.
Thank you. That'd be great. I'll talk to you tomorrow too about that, Lisa, if you want.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, so we're coming up on 6:30. So I would look for a motion to adjourn the workshop and then do a 10-minute recess or 5, whatever you guys prefer.
I'll make a motion to recess for 10 minutes.
Second. All right, all those in favor of adjourning with a 10-minute recess, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. All right, we are adjourned at 6:29. We will start our regular meeting at 6:39.
When we go into the separate meeting.
Yes.
Invite.
Are you coming to take care of that? Okay, you do it, but if you want to, go ahead. We're good. to approve the amended agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor say,
Roll call.
oh, that's right, thank you. And I was going to get my roll call list. All right, yes, because we
That's
have,
your list, pulling it out of the 3-ring binder.
well, I
like
have, no, I have. it.
Oh, it is written down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so yes, because we have one of our members attending virtually, we will do a roll call vote for all votes tonight. So the motion by Ms. Rowe, second by Ms. Tower to approve the amended agenda. Mr. Bryant,
Aye.
Ms. Buck,
Aye.
Mr. Geertz,
Aye.
Ms. Rowe, Ms. Tower.
Aye.
Ms. Tift is gone, and chair votes aye, so that carries 6-0. Okay. Our educational plan is in the board packet. Recognitions and upcoming events. Or, sir,
I'll
yes,
start.
go ahead.
Thank you. First, I want to start with an apology to the Native American and the other graduations that went on. I was not able to attend those. After going to the graduation on Friday night, I realized how important they are. I'm going to try my best next year. My schedule is to be better so I can attend as many as I can. But it's one of my funnest times as a school board member is to be on that stage during graduation and see so many smiles and happy young men and women going up there to achieve, especially for the last 2 years that we've had this pandemic, to going from in school to out of school for the rest of the year to this and that and mask and all this and that. It was a perfect, beautiful night weather-wise and a lot of fun. And everybody did a wonderful job there that spoke, that organized it, put it on. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that people don't get recognized for, but know that we know who they are and we appreciate them getting things going on all the graduations that we had here. So I just want to recognize that, and I'll do my best, Nikki and others, to make next year's other graduations. It's just, I had other things going on I need to adjust. So, thank you.
Ms. Tower?
Thank you. I attended the 5RO graduation on Saturday over at GCED, and it was also fantastic and inspiring and much smaller, probably a lot shorter. But there were a lot of family members there, and we had 6 students show up for graduation. A few couldn't make it. Some students chose to graduate from their actual high school. These students chose to graduate from 5RO, so their diploma said 5RO. And we had 1 student from St. Paul that was there, 3 from Red Wing, and 2 from, where's Jim from? Zambroda, Msba, yeah. And Sherry spoke, and Kim did a fantastic job, and Heidi Rash did a fantastic job, just making sure that the kids got their credits at the last minute, which they had promised themselves they would do. So it was very, very nice, and I was very pleased to go. So, thank you.
All right. There's no others. Public comment. I don't have anybody signed in for public comment, and I have not received any emails.
I've never received any emails either.
All right. Student school board members, I do not believe have anything to present today. Hopefully soon. Next up is COVID-related topics.
Yeah, I think this will be the last report for a while because we're not receiving county updates on a regular basis. So it's there. It's a farewell report to the COVID update. And it won't be there later.
I wish we could say farewell to COVID, but I don't think we will.
celebration like thing, and the board meeting, we're done with COVID.
Throw
We
the
put a mask
cats.
in there and I came back.
And if anyone says monkeypox, that's it, we're done.
So obviously, if there's a surge or if there's an issue, we'll definitely bring it up, but we won't have the regular report.
Hopefully it's stay gone.
Thank you.
Thank you indeed.
All right, so we have a special presentation tonight. We have Mr. McWendland, Flight Paths Coordinator here, and Noah Morgan, who is one of the students who had an internship this past year, to speak with us.
Good evening.
Let's get there we go. Good evening, Chair and Board. Thank you for having us this evening and the opportunity to present about the Spring Flight Paths Internship Program. I had the slides were in the packet ahead of time, but I'm going to share them here. So I'm going to just present. There's only 170 some slides in this presentation, but we're not going to do them all.
It was 7 o'clock.
Even then, we can still do. So these, in this full PowerPoint slide are the presentations that all of the interns did. That was part of their final project. That was their final project, and those presentations occurred throughout last week. Chair Ostendorf was there, Jennifer Titch was there as well. Carson Anderson was there, among some other district representatives and teachers. Let me know. Is it presenting online?
I don't see,
Oh, it's
it's
just.
working on it.
That too.
Okay.
Here it comes. Thinking about it.
We think it's coming.
Okay.
It says loading, so.
By the way, as it's loading, I'm really impressed by, the presentations and actually the whole program. And so it was really nice to be able to walk across the hall and, see some of the student presentations. I wish I could see them all. The ones I did see were all very impressive, and that's why I invited, through you, to invite Noah to come back, because I was impressed with the presentation I saw, and he has just a good way about him and unbelievably good experiences. So, yeah, certainly you can give the update, and then we'll turn it over to Noah and hear what he has to say.
All right, looks like we're set to go.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the presentation that I had from the beginning for all the guests. We invited parents to come, invited the businesses that came along with, as well as some community members. We didn't have the students to record them throughout the semester, so some of them gave us permission to use, to share with the community, to have as part of the information about flight paths to share with others. So once those are edited, I'll have those available. So if you'd like to watch some of them, they are really fantastic. It's just amazing the experiences that they've had. So just some information. So Winger Flight Paths is an early childhood through 12th grade initiative that is all about career exploration and awareness. It's about representation, see it to be it, and really anything that we can do to help students make a more informed choice for what they want to do after graduation. So these internship opportunities are kind of the most inclusive, most immersive opportunity that students have the access to. Majority seniors, a couple of juniors through a program that we have with Red Wing Ignite. The lens is very much a lens of equality among career fields and among continuing levels of education. So there's nothing that's ranked higher or greater. We want to meet students where they're at, figure out what their goals are for after graduation, challenge them in every direction, but really want to meet them where they are and what their interests are. This spring, we had 42 interns that we had out. That makes for 181 total interns that we've had since we started this in the spring of 2019. So we're about a quarter to a third of our graduating class that's participated in one of these experiences. And this year we had 33 hosting businesses. And I'm here on the next slide, and I'm told that this is too much information to put on a slide because it's overwhelming to have this much text, but that's kind of what I want is that overwhelming sensation of just how much support this community has for our students. Each one of these businesses took a student for a good chunk of time throughout the semester to have them in their businesses, to have them with their employees, to take time, be a little less productive, and show them what it's really like. Show them the great parts, show them the not so great parts, show them the reality, show them how much paperwork and emailing there is, except for the surgical tech. She said they don't have any paperwork, so that's the job to get into. But you can see here that our lens of equality among career fields is represented here. We have human services, we have manufacturing, we have automotive, we have healthcare, we have education, we have a wide variety of interests that matches our students' interests and what they wanted to go on to. And this list represents who was able to match with us this year. We had other businesses reach out and said, we would love to take somebody in. We just didn't have a student that had that interest this year. So this isn't even the extent of support that we're getting from the community for our students. So just a huge thank you to all of these businesses and the community as a whole for providing opportunities that are really difficult, actually impossible to parallel within the school setting. So that's what we had in this situation. So Noah's going to present his presentation that he gave as part of his final year. After I say this, one more slide. But there's a general theme among the presenters that they all were more knowledgeable about their career field. They enhanced their technical vocabulary. They felt more academically and professionally prepared. A number of them got job offers. Noah was one of them. Others had opportunities for continued interning. So our students at the Mayo Clinic had offers now to come back and go into the operating room, other things that they couldn't do during our time. One student got offered a scholarship opportunity. So there's more benefits that some of these students are getting beyond the confines of the school year itself. So one of the big things too is students are also realizing sometimes what they don't want to do. Historically, we're about 1 in 6 students that goes into this internship, finish it and goes, yeah, that's not for me. And that's great. That's great learning too, to know now that, you know, this isn't where I want to dedicate more time necessarily. So we count that as a win as well. But without further ado, I'll let Noah go. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking.
Hello, everybody. My name is Noah Morgan. I graduated here in Red Wing literally a few days ago on Friday. And this is my internship. Hopefully.
Oh, welcome.
Thanks for coming back.
Yeah.
Coming across the state.
Yeah. A few goals and expectations I had was I really didn't know what to expect when I walked into this whole career because I didn't want my passion to be ruined by money, income, and job and all that good stuff. And I wanted to see if it felt fit for me for, you know, a real job. But one of the real reasons why I like cars so much is because it's like working on a puzzle. And I mean, who doesn't like a good puzzle, you know, especially a big one where there's big consequences for. But I found out that I enjoyed taking parts off of cars and stuff and fixing them and just feeling that accomplishment of, yeah, I just did that, you know. But when I first went into this internship, I think I had a really big deal with knowing which size socket and wrench to use for each bolt and or screw. And it was just a struggle for me because I was sitting there like, why isn't this turning? You know, because I had the wrong socket on.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. My first my second placement was at Falk Auto Body, and they specialize in collision damage repair and painting. I think this was the most well put together shop that I was probably at in Red Wing. They're super passionate about what they do, and their staff is just amazing. They're always smiling, they're always cracking jokes, they always have something to talk about with you. It's really cool. My first placement was at Hubert's Auto Body, and they're also known for their damage and collision repair stuff as well as painting. And I'm told that they're also the first to use waterborne paint in Red Wing, which is just a different type of adhesive to the paint that makes it last longer, stick better, etc. Makes it look pretty. My last placement, which I am still going to because I enjoy it so much, is Jesus Driven, and they are a nonprofit organization that helps drivers that can't really financially afford getting back on the road because of financial struggle and whatnot. And the main part with shops is the labor fees, because the whole time that they're working on your car, they're getting paid for it. And George does not do that. He does not expect you to pay for labor fees. The only thing he has you pay for is parts. And even right now with inflation and all that good stuff, parts are not that expensive for little small things or just stuff that can be fixed that you can't do yourself. But I think this is by far my favorite one that I've been to. I mean, I'm still going to it, so that says something. Here's some of the work that I actually did with George at this internship. And we were given a Ford Escape that did not have enough oil in it and caused it to seize up, and then the engine just exploded. Pistons were flying out of the engine and whatnot.
Not during the internship.
Not during the internship. The engine blew, and we actually had to drop the engine out of the car and then get one from a scrapyard, which was around $400, and then place it back into the car. And we had to scrap all of the other parts that were not, working because the engine exploded. And we had to salvage some other parts too, because, make do with what you got. Don't fix it if it broke. And yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to be part of dropping an engine. Like, I love cars and stuff, and that's something that I always really wanted to do, was on my bucket list. And I'm really thankful that George had this happen, and then we got to do it. And I got to be a part of it. I learned a lot from it too, actually. Lots of parts of the engine that I didn't even know existed. Some specifics. So at Falk, there is two sides to the shop. There's the painting side and the collision damage repair. And mainly with collision damage, there is a lot of cracked bumpers, fenders, like wheel well linings and stuff like that. And mainly it's just trying to fix what the customer wanted to fix in the first place. And that being the intercooler, because we had somebody came in with a broken intercooler, and we had to get off all the bumpers and all that good stuff, which is really, really irritating because it took so long. But in the process of you taking off all the bumpers and stuff to get into the inside of the car, if you end up breaking something, then you have to then mark down what you broke so you can replace it, and then get it painted to the exact same coat of paint that the customer's car was. And I mean, that's really it for collision damage repair. I think it's really fun. It's kind of easy. I don't really know. But painting and buffing on the other side of Falk was mainly just focusing on painting aspect. And I'm not gonna lie, I didn't realize there's so many different shades of green. There was a lot of shades of green. Because what they do is they have like darkest to lightest, and then it goes from code like A all the way down to like Z1. And mixing numbers with letters, that's when you lose me, and yada yada. But the buffing part of it too also comes to painting, because say you have like a scratch in your car or something, kids being kids or whatever, you need to get it fixed. And so basically what they do is they put the buffing compound on it. Sometimes it's actually dirt, little do you know, and they rub it around on the car, and then it gets all up in the scratches and all the crevices, and they paint over it again, and it looks like nothing happened. Pretty cool, right? Things I learned and did. Most bolts on the car are actually the same size. I did not know that. And mainly with the outer liner of the wheel well, all the screws are also the same size too. So like all the tiny clips that are holding in the small panels on the wheel well are the same size. So just for next time, if you ever end up doing that. I also ended up taking the front and back bumper off of a Chevy Equinox, and that took forever. Most of the interior panels were clipped on with some really heavy duty clips, and there's a lot of prying going on. And I mean, just being able to experience the taking apart stage of the interior of the car and all the panels inside of it and all the wiring that's actually behind all those panels was really, really cool. I didn't know there was that much computing going into all the cars nowadays, which is really, really cool. Watching the painting and buffing process was also really cool, because I didn't know you put dirt in compound, because this doesn't make sense, But Mikey from Falk, who is also an alumni from Reading High School, really just makes the whole painting process look very poetic. Like, he just has these long strokes, and I tried painting myself too, and I couldn't get it the first time, and I was getting frustrated. Some highlights, I would say building relationships with the workers, especially at Hubert's and Falk, because it's an actual shop. And I got to go around and meet all the people around the shop and like learn what they drive, learn what their next project car is, because every car guy has something they're working on that takes more than just 2 years to get running on the road. And just talking about what got them into cars. You know, most of them were saying that their grandpa or their dad or something along the lines of that were the ones that really drove them to get into this industry, which is really cool. A lot of family played a lot of aspects into it. Just trying to help their family with a simple oil change or rotating tires and stuff is what made them do it. And seeing all of the parts of the engine that I didn't know that were there at first, because I mean, when I first went into this, I had a very bland knowledge about cars and engines and stuff like that. And now, like, I know what a crankshaft is, a camshaft, valve covers, you know, gaskets and all that stuff. And I didn't know that there were sensors on the engine, like actual computer parts, because I know you think of an engine, you think of very violent, like combustion noises and not really places for computers to be. But yeah, that was probably the best part, is just learning about what was in the engine and all that stuff, because I, like I said, didn't know much about it. A lot of surprises I had actually were how well most of the workers that go to school for this are. I was told that a majority of the workers in the collision damage repair side of the shop were making at least 6 figures, and that was from them going to school and getting the certificate for it, which I didn't know, because I thought when you work at an auto body shop, you just get trained as you go, you learn, you know, which is pretty cool, because I actually do plan on going to DCTC, so that helps me figure out which route I'm going to go with this and stuff like that. And another thing too was how happy the workers were to be there. You know, when you think of an auto body shop, you think of like really old cranky men, you know, it's just people that don't want to be there breaking their back and stuff. But I was surprised to see how many people actually really enjoyed their job. And it was really cool, because that was also one of the really scary things for me, was meeting really cranky old men. Things that probably would have changed was, as an 8th grader, you know, dumb 8th grader, I really didn't like a whole lot of the shop side of the high school, because either A, I was scared of getting burnt or cut, or B, I just didn't care about school at all. And I think what I would probably would have changed is doing more like metal shop classes, like welding and stuff, and like MIG welding. And I only did one in 8th grade, and I think I just barely got by because I didn't like the class. But I would have definitely changed more metals classes, because that's also a really crucial part in the automotive industry, is being able to weld stuff back together if it needs to be done. And I did get the opportunity to actually weld with George, who was also a Red Wing alumni, at Genius Driven. And I think I had a lot more fun at the internship that I did at school, because I'm actually interested in it now. And it really enlightened how many ways you can weld stuff together. Like, there's so many different types of welding you can do and stuff like that, and that was really cool to me. In terms of being academically prepared, I do feel like I can really hold my own at a tech school now. Beforehand, I didn't feel like I would be able to fit in with a lot of the demographic of people who are very, very knowledgeable in the automotive industry, like all the parts of the engine and all that stuff. But I feel like I can hold my own in a conversation, which is really, really nice. And actually, majority of the people at Falk actually went to DCTC, and they told me about their experiences there and how they actually cut the price down for tools and toolboxes in half, because when you go to school there, you get like discounts for that kind of stuff because of how expensive tools and toolboxes are, which is really cool. And yeah, I mean, they just really kind of mentored me into the way of, this is what schooling's going to be like, and this is what you're probably going to do after school, and then just what a basic day of work is for that kind of stuff. Professionally prepared, I know what a day's work is like at a shop, and I do feel ready for it. I'm actually really excited too. Most of the guys at Falk basically were just saying the same thing, that like, this is what you're gonna do. And then they went on about how as you are in a shop, you gradually get more seniority over the years, and you get more say in like hours and pay and stuff. So like I won't be doing grunt work my whole life, which is nice. But being a 22 grad, I do plan on attending DCTC this fall to have a certified skill under my belt in automotive tech. And then I do want to thank Hubert, Falk, and Jesus Driven for all they've taught me, all the stuff they put up with me not doing something right, and just all the projects that I got to be a part of, and putting people back on the road is a good feeling for me. I'm really forever grateful.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned, because I know George Gabrielson.
Yeah.
My son, I think it's a year ahead of him. Nice young man.
Yeah, super smart. Super smart.
Say hi to him from us. I have one more question.
Oh, sure.
Gwendolyn, you mentioned all those people in that very full thing there, that you had students that are interested in those fields. For referendum planning to Ann Robertson, I don't know if you have, maybe you have you submitted that list, and can you give her a list of the other ones that said, we're interested, but we weren't able to fill them? That way, when we go out to the public, talk about Noah's experience and others, and all the other ones, all the other businesses in the area that are participating and helping our students here as we go forward.
Yep, I've got the full list. She'll have access to that too.
No Anne's listening, she's okay with that, but I would like it if I had to present anything as talk about it, because what a wonderful presentation and experience that Noah received and got.
And that's been across the board with our students at all these different placements, just the behind the scenes things that they've been able to see, and just the confidence that they're having going on to those next steps of, you know, and you know, when they get into their classes, whether it's on the job training or it's continued schooling, they can relate that theory and that content back to real experiences. It's not just, you know, someday you're going to see this, it's, oh, that's what that actually was, or that's how we should have done it, or, you know, you can relate it to a real experience. And so it's just, I mean, it's an unparalleled experience for them to have. So,
thank you.
And the purpose with the Winger Flight Pass in terms of the registration thing is no one elected to take that 8th grade class in the Msba, but that's part of our encouragement process when we get to registration. Is if you're thinking about these things, is these are some of the classes that we want you to take, but to enhance the experience as a whole too. But I'm certainly not going to not offer those opportunities.
Ms. Howard, you're in the queue.
Oh, no, that's from a long time ago.
Okay, sorry.
But no, I
Go
don't.
ahead.
Just like to say, Noah, thank you for this great presentation. I wasn't aware that you would actually be able to intern at 3 different places in a year, and it sounds like you enjoyed all of them, and that's great. I like cars, and hopefully I'm not a grouchy old guy.
He said,
but I don't think everybody's looking at me, and then probably. But I saw the picture of Paul talking about, was that Nancy Falk in there?
It was, yes.
She's also a graduate of Medway High School.
Really?
I graduated with her, so.
Oh, wow.
I was her kid's
It's really
babysitter.
great to see. the start
Small world,
and
huh?
everything
She's
else.
my neighbor.
So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It was great to see your presentation before, great to see it tonight too, and I think, so what a cool experience. And, you know, especially when you didn't know, like, do you want something that you're passionate about as a hobby to be something that you go into as a career, and to be able to kind of sort those things out. And some of the other presentations too, one student who interned with early childhood and realizing, like, you know, the kids are gonna sneeze right on her and things like that. Those are things you don't realize until you're like working with children, and that, can you handle that? There's lots of things that I think you just don't realize of, you know, what's really involved in any particular job. And to know whether that's where you want to put all of your effort and your energy. So I'm really glad that you got to have this experience, and that so many others did too. Very cool.
For sure.
So, thank you.
Nice job, Noel.
Thank you. Thank you.
I should say, nice job, Noah and Nick.
Okay, and then you're gonna tell us about our teacher externships.
Yeah, so on a similar vein, so obviously you can see the benefits for Noah in where he's at now too. Some districts have gotten into teacher externships, and they can look a myriad of different ways. And so throughout the years, teachers have been like, that would be really cool if I got to do that too. And so that's kind of what we started to play around with, was where do some of our teaching staff have interests in wanting to connect more with our community businesses as well, to bring things back to the classroom so they can say, I've had these experiences and now I can tell you, well, when are we ever going to use this? Or I'll tell you when we can use this. Or just like as things continue to emerge and evolve, even some of our teaching staff that has come from industry, if they've been out for a while, industry continues to evolve and change. So having that collaboration just really helps too. So we're piloting it this year with 10 teachers, using curriculum writing dollars for an opportunity to get some individualized professional development. So I met with each of those teachers, got their insight on what it is they would like to learn more about. For example, Kirby Hansen wants to better understand renewable and non-renewable energy sources and what that looks like. So we just got them paired up with Excel Energy today. And so they're going to go through their plan on how they want to be carbon free by 2050 and what they're doing at the Excel plant, or at the steam plant, at the nuke plant, and in their other venues as well. So that'll be information that then he can come and bring back into his classroom as well.
And the commitment is that each person needs to interview with Ann Robertson, or has the opportunity to interview with Ann Robertson, so we can share the message.
Great idea.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work and for presenting.
It's all fun stuff.
For sure.
I'm gonna like these with my son back.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm excited for it.
Do you have a favorite car, Noah?
I have plenty of favorites. If I were to tell you to listen, go on and on.
Or what do you feel your first car will be?
I don't know. I like a lot of BMWs, a lot of Toyota and Nissan, but as long as it's a stick and I can just do whatever I want
You
to it.
know how to fix it.
Yeah, you want to drive a stick, huh?
Yeah,
Not many around.
I know. That's why I want one. And they're just more fun to drive. Yeah, vroom, vroom.
Good to go.
Right,
Do
thank
you want me
you.
to turn the camera on?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, do I mute it as well?
No, leave the volume on because that's what picks up all of us. So, Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank
You did a
you.
great job. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
All right, so we have Ms. Rowe here to give us an update on Title I.
It will be less fun than Noah's. I apologize.
Yeah, spice it up a little.
Yep. In advance, I'm apologizing.
You can turn the camera on if you want.
Thank you.
After we told you to turn it off.
Yep.
While Jen is setting up, you just have the answer with marketing the school district and passing the referendum.
Yeah.
What just happened right there. Yeah. And that's not why I invited him. I invited him because he's a great speaker and had such a great experience, but that's what we have to focus on, are these positive things that we're doing because of what the lawyers do.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that the presentations have been recorded and hopefully, a lot of them will be able to be viewed. They were good.
Well, thank you very much for having me tonight. I am going to go over this as briefly as possible, but you may have some questions anyway. Title I is a little bit complicated and I'm still learning my way around that. Luckily, I have Jackie to help me with all of the budget pieces of this. But I did want to talk about what our curriculum looks like right now, what we've seen for our scores as we've gone through the curriculum, and what it'll look like from before next year. I want you to know that for Title I this year, we've served about 198 students. That is between Twin Bluffs, Sunnyside, Burnside, and St. John's. We had 7 students from St. John's. Megan Dahman specifically served those students during the course of this year. When we talk about Title I, what we're talking about is a federally funded general education support. And what we are trying to do is we are just trying to get kids skills so that they're able to read and hit those standards that we have. Now, you talked earlier today about how we really need to get the free and reduced lunch forms filled out. It is imperative that we do that for this particular program. The funding is based on the number of free and reduced, or the number of students who qualify for free and reduced, although our services, if a student, it doesn't matter if a student qualifies for free and reduced or not, we will serve them regardless. But this is how we get our funding. There are so much paperwork that is kind of involved in collecting all of the data. I'm really grateful too that I've had Megan Dahmen to kind of help me see through that, and that Mike Pagel has really helped structure how we gather the data. It's been a while since we've been audited. I'm looking forward to being audited soon. It'll be a learning experience for me.
Looking forward to it.
I am, because I just want to know what I'm doing in a really functional way so that we can get these kids the skills that they have to have. Parent involvement is one of the things that is required. And right now what we have, or this past school year, we had 2 teachers and we had 6.5 paraprofessionals. We did not replace one of our paraprofessionals when she retired mid-year. And so this next year, we will have that same staffing, that same level of staffing, 2 teachers, and we will have the 6 paraprofessionals. We identify students by our FastBridge scores, also teacher recommendation. We also look at classroom performance just generally. And this year, we started a new curriculum that's called Washika Biomes, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. This year, our budget was about $318,000, and next year we'll have just a bit of an increase. What we're looking forward to doing then is to increase our parent involvement. With COVID, we've had virtual parent advisory committee meetings. We had last spring, what we did was we had a drive-up parent fun night with the kids. Less fun than going to the foot room, which we did this year. And we had ice cream and free books and those sorts of things, but still, we think that there are some areas in which we can really get more parent involvement. Like I said before, our curriculum is Washika Biomes, and it is based on the 44 phonemes or the sounds. And the reason why that's important is because we know that that's an area that's just a foundational reading, just a piece of reading that we have to know about, or the kids have to know. Is that the 5? Holly, you can help me out anytime you want to with your Sunday experience. What is great about this program, as opposed to what we've done previously, is it's hands-on for our students. We are noticing right now, as we look at the results from assessments, that areas where we could really maybe bump what we're doing up hands-on with the students are right at kindergarten, looking at using sandpaper letters and those sorts of things, just trying to get all parts of the body and brain moving at the same time so that we get the kids learning what they need to. There is some additional practice in decoding with writing and reading words, and it is kind of just an interesting little setup. One of the things that Megan and I would like to do next year is we would like to, when we have the parents come in, show them what it looks like, because it is a little bit unusual compared to what we've done in the past with Title I. What we saw this year with our results from assessments, this spring assessment, we had some aggressive growth in kindergarten. 76% of the kids that were in Title I at Sunnyside made aggressive growth, which is fantastic. At Twin Bluff, for the second graders that we had, 82% of the kids in Title I made some aggressive growth. We saw growth all the way around. Areas where we do think we're going to, aside from the kindergarten area, areas that we're going to have to bolster or consider are when we get to 4th grade, because at that point in time, the program kind of maxes itself out. So we're going to have to make some determinations about whether the student needs to remain in Title I or if we need to look at another intervention that will be helpful in moving them forward.
Ask a question now.
Yeah, go for it.
Do the students leave class to go to a title teacher, or does a title teacher come in?
They're going to the teacher because it is so interactive.
So it's like a whole setup for the kids to go and do all of the different things.
Okay. What's great is that our parents or our teachers will go to those classrooms, and you'll see the teachers or their parents coming back, and they're doing air writing of letters or things like that. So they're using as much time as they can to get the kids what they need. I've been really impressed with that. Ultimately, what we wanted to talk about, though, was that policy 612 with the development of parent and family engagement policies for Title I programs. This coordinates really well with our Title I 1A and Title IIA compliance guide that we work on making sure that we have complete, so when they do audit, They can say, oh, this is good, that's not, we've got to redo it. But I did want to talk to you a little bit about what we are doing right now. So you know how every week we have the school district SMORE that comes out, or that newsletter that comes out. Megan has done monthly newsletters through that SMORE for all parents on Title I. Within those SMOREs are activities you can do with your children at home, some of the, definitely all the contact information. And those are easily I just lost the word, guys.
Transferable.
Thank you. Translated to whatever language that you need. It's just one of those nice features. One of the things that we need to do as we go through Title I is we go through like a parent compact. We talk about how, what we're doing, is it enough? And so some of the feedback we've gotten in the past is, are we providing enough feedback to parents? And so one of the things that came from there was a weekly progress report that goes home. So we've gotten some pretty good information from parents. In the past, it's been a smaller group of parents that have been brought together to kind of give feedback on that. But what we're looking to do is kind of expand that as we move from here. We do send reading activities home with students, and Kelly Hassemer and Jamie Euste are always really great at making sure that we have everything for those activities translated. A couple weeks back, we had our family fun night, like I said, at the foot room, which was great. So you come down, there's a parent survey that the parents complete. We have that in a couple of languages. The students get some ice cream, parents get some ice cream, then they get to choose a book. And they can then go upstairs, and upstairs, the library folks did a scavenger hunt for the students that were up there, and they were able to get another book. So as we move forward, and I look at what we're going to do, I do have a new staff person to train pretty quick in the consent agenda, that's in there. And we're going to be working on just better training for Washika and making sure that we are following along with our letters training, our science of reading. And we want to look for more opportunities for parent involvement. Also, one of the things that Kirsten has volunteered me to do, and I think it's exactly what we need to do, is just work at how we are doing school-wide title services as opposed to targeted services. Currently, we're at targeted, so that really means what we do is we target students who have needs, and we pull them out. But what we really want to do is we want to be bolstering what our Tier 1 instruction is and provide the supports that way. So what that also involves is us looking for waivers and ensuring that we are for free and reduced lunch. And I can get a waiver for that. But anyway, it's kind of lengthy. And if you want more information, I guess you can come on over when I'm filling the programming out. And I think the next biggest thing that we are looking to do is streamline our curriculums from Tier 1 to Tier 3. In conjunction with that Director of Teaching and Learning and what we're doing for our multi-tier systems of support for students. We know that the best place for kids is in Tier 1. We want them to be exposed to everything there, because once you are pulled out, it takes that much more to get caught up. And so those are some of the things that we're just kind of looking to do. We don't have a great like a step-by-step plan, but we do have a general plan to get more people involved. Yes, Ellie.
Thank you. So is your Title I outside of the classroom in a specific place? Is that your Tier 3?
Like
or is that a meld of the 2 and 3?
It's kind of a meld. It's more 2 than it is Tier 3, right? Because we're working on the same skill, maybe not the same sight words, but the same skills as what they are working on in their classroom.
Are we seeing any successful transition of what's going on in Title back into the general ed curriculum that the whole group is being instructed with, or is that completely isolated during Tier 1? They're gone for the whole period.
No.
Okay.
We are really trying to not do that. For example, we're looking at what I need now times or when times where we do specific intervention blocks so that kids are not taken out of that first best instruction from general ed teachers.
Cool. Thanks. I look forward to learning more.
Okay, great. I'll be glad to answer any questions once I know more.
You're good. You're good.
I really appreciate you coming, especially, you know, when we read through that policy 612 of like, okay, we have a policy that we're doing all these things. Are we doing all the things? And just, you know, not knowing. So I really appreciate you filling us in on all the things that are happening that you just, you know, don't always see and that other people don't always see. If your kids aren't directly involved in it, you know, at the moment, you may not know that this is happening. So really appreciate you sharing all of that with us.
Well, thank you for your time tonight.
Thanks. Ken. Thank you.
Enjoy your evening. I'm just talking a lot. We're never getting anything.
Bye, Jen.
Yeah, goodbye.
Thanks, Jen.
Yes.
All right, school board reports.
Well, I can tell you for negotiations, you'll see, we've got the custodial agreement and we do have a tenant agreement from support personnel as well. So we're very excited about that news. Yes, it'll be coming down probably in the next meeting.
Hopefully.
All right, from our board liaisons, any updates?
There are significant updates from Community Ed, but we didn't have a meeting and I don't have my notes with me, but I do want to report on those next time. It's swimming lessons and open swim and when the pool opens and all that good
All the
stuff.
summer things?
Yes, all the summer things. So I do want to report on that next time. But I did go to the GCD meeting and we got updates on 5RO and we got updates on resignations and new hires and a lot of information about recovery services versus credit recovery with ALC and how that information or how that teaching goes for kids. So GCD runs all of the ALC programming, but we still hire the teachers that help do the credit recovery, but they carry the license for it. So we no longer, Redmond Public Schools doesn't carry the license for credit recovery. We are under the umbrella of GCD because they have Tower View and they have the ALC programs. And it's kind of complex and it's something I think we should look at in the future of how all that breaks down, but not tonight because we'll need more information from Sherry. And then as new people come on board for the district, what that actually looks like. They might have an expertise in recovery services, or not recovery, but in ALC, or we right now have kids in silos in different parts of the district, including GCD. Some kids are at Tower View, some are ALC, some do credit recovery in high school, some do credit recovery online. So we're trying to fit the needs of the kids, but I'd like Red Wing to kind of have a more comprehensive look at how we're doing all of those services so that everybody here at the table kind of understands that. If somebody were to come up to you and say, how do kids do credit recovery on the school, your school, well, we'd have to ask 7 different people. Instead, I think it's something that should be able to roll off the tongue. So that's just one piece. And then we talked about the students at 5RO. And we have 388 students total at 5RO, and 203 are from Red Wing. We have 203 are from Red Wing. We have open enrollees of 6.4% from kids outside of Lake County. Let's see. There's just more complex information about general ed revenue and the percentages of, Sherry had some nice visuals of the percentage of kids, like pie graphs and different things like that. We're the bulk of it. Red Wing is the bulk of the kids that attend. Red Wing is the bulk of the money in terms of payment. And then here's an update on the budget. They have received $10,555,601, or 64.6% of the revised budget, compared to 84% at 4/30/21 and 65% at 4/30/20. So we're comparable to 2020, but we're much lower than 2021. We've expended $10,337,257, or 62.4% of the revised expense budget, compared to 35% in 21 and 65% in 20. Retro salary payments for the settlement of the teacher's contract were paid on May 13th, so are not yet included in those figures. And they're looking at a cash flow shortage they're not looking at a cash flow shortage for 21, 22. And then I know I talked about in the future having Sherry come over and kind of explain a little bit more about GCED and the funding that we pay for GCED, but not necessarily 5-0. Those are two separate things. So that'll all make a little bit more sense as we bring everybody together after we get through these couple big things. Any questions?
I don't know if it's Sherry that's on the kind of tentative schedule for August 1st, but that's when we have GCED bill back explanation kind of tentatively scheduled for a workshop.
Yeah.
So I would assume that that's.
I think that's what we were putting it back into August because there were so many other things that had to take precedent.
Yep.
Yeah. But then I'll have more finite questions by then because we'll have another meeting, 2 meetings before then.
Anyone else? Yes.
I
Right.
had 2 meetings. I did not make the calendar committee. This girl can do that, fill us all in if she wants. I did health and safety committee. It's amazing. We were in May and we're talking about somebody slipping on the ice back before and those, I apologize for not having that tracks. What's it called? Yak tracks. Yak tracks that we give out free of charge to people. We encourage them to wear them. We don't know if this person has. We're gonna do a little bit more information to find out, you know, who's using them. If they fell, were they issued a P, one of those. So we really encourage people to wear them, especially in the time when it's snow and ice, you know. Could be just right from your car to the parking lot. You never know. It could be somewhere else. Wear them when you're on the weekend, you know, and all that. So, yeah, we're not meeting again until September, but everything else was going pretty good. Labor Management Committee, we met, and it's a year now. We'll be rebidding out the health insurance piece of it. Got to see Lynn Kermis. I worked with Lynn when I was a commissioner. He was our first one. I was on the insurance committee there, and it's good to see Lynn. So we'll do that. And there was a few other things going on about the voluntary disability that people can pay for, different things that they're looking at totally. But back and forth, a few emails afterwards about a few things and questions, but overall it's good. We meet again, I think, I don't know the exact date, but down the road here, and then I'm getting into, you know, finalists and looking at them and making a decision down the road. So good turnout for that committee. No, I'm not taking any questions. I don't have a set. I gotta get one. When I was at my other job before I retired, we were up in Barnes Bluff a number of times, and I finally bought my own pair because in the wintertime we had to go rescue people up there. You know, horrible accidents to getting somebody down safely. So they do work. So if you don't have a pair, see Alan Gaylor and get a pair. I'm gonna get a pair here before the snow flies, and so we want to make sure everybody's as safe as possible. So, thank you.
I did double check. I do have my community ed updates and I want to share them now. Sure. So I don't forget.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, Kids Junction. They have a record number of registrations for Summer Kids Junction. 290 children have enrolled aged 33 months through grade 5. For the first time ever, they have had to take a waiting list for enrollment. Currently 15 are on the wait list for Kids Junction. Many fun field trips, activities are planned. Summer Kids Junction is at Sunnyside only, not at Burnside. Park Naturalist. The program received grants to attend training on bird banding and to install a wildlife viewing station at Caldwell Park, free and handicap accessible. Many new and exciting events are planned this summer. Okay, Red Wing Water Park. The city pool will open for the season this Wednesday, June 8th, and it will run through August 12th. The daily hours are 12 to 6. They had another successful $5 pool pass program this year. In partnership with the city of Red Wing, any child on free and reduced lunch is able to receive a seasonal pool pass for $5 each. We had around 300 students that took advantage of that offer. A lot of kids. Driver's education. All 3 of the summer's driver's ed classes are full with waiting lists. They're excited to welcome behind the wheel instructors Chris Palmetier, the guy who kissed the pig, and Kirby Hansen. Hiawatha Valley adult education classes are offered in person as well as online, asynchronously and synchronously throughout the summer. One new class offered in June is Learn the Basics of Driving. This class is for adults who may need assistance preparing for the Minnesota driver's permit test. And my braces may be full. Colville Family Center is offering preschool classes once again. The classes are already full with a waiting list. For the summer. Yeah. Summer preschool classes. So summer, that's how I read it. I could be wrong, whatever. And then, Community Ed and Rec is offering a wide array of classes, camps, and programs this summer, many of which are already filled for the season. The brochure is at redwingpublicschools.org. Click on Community Ed or visit the office Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. Enter door 10A. And if you have any questions or need clarification, please call Red Wing Community Ed.
Why is the pool open on August 12th?
Is it so hot?
Because it gets so hot.
Usually because a lot of their staff are
Probably, I
college
figured that
students.
was it. But,
I know it makes me so sad because.
yeah, 3 more weeks of school for summer before.
They have really tough time
I
staffing.
bet you could be a lifeguard.
Would be.
There you go.
Have to wear some sunscreen on your head.
Okay, administrative reports.
Real quick update. First, there is a recommendation to hire Patrick Bierman as our next middle school principal. Comes highly regarded from principalship in Wilmer in an alternative learning center. And we had a group of parents, staff members, administrators who participated in the interview process. So thankful for their efforts. MCA participation rates are included as an attachment. And I just want to spend just a quick minute reminding everyone about this. If you look at our 10th grade participation rates, about half the kids took the test and half the kids did not. It's the students' parents' right to keep them from taking the test. I have no problem with that, but just a reminder that this year, if somebody does not take the test, it shows as not passing. So even if everyone takes the test in 10th grade and if everyone who took the test passed it, every single one, the best we're gonna do is 50%. So just a reminder, and again, I'm not complaining about the state's policy. I am complaining about how the state reports it. It's wrong. But just a reminder, as the issue comes up again. Credit upgrade, thanks to Jackie's work and the school board member work, our credit rating for Moody's investment did go from an A3 to an A2. That's good for taxpayers because that means lower interest rates on bonds in the future. You see update about student discipline, staffing, substitutes, operating levy, and the status of COVID-related federal grants. There's another blurb about Stop It Bullying program that we talked about real briefly last spring. And I think we'll bring it back to a board meeting here to go in more detail as far as whether we should pursue that or not. We do have a chance of using it for nothing for a period of time. And but I think we about that.
Ms. Taylor?
I know when we discussed it at GCED, one of the things that came up was kids that do not have access to technology to be participating members in it. Because you have to have access to something in order to report. So it kind of was an imbalance. Then does it become the schools provide that piece for kids to have a stop it option, or how does that come into play? So it was an equity piece, basically. Yes, it's free. Yes, this is the app. But some kids would have access, some wouldn't. Would it cause some type of unfortunate division? So that was one thing that we discussed at GCD, because they were going to try to use it, and then that came up, and then it was kind of think about it more. It's a great idea,
Can it be used through Chromebooks or just with like a cell phone?
I think it has an app, but I don't know if it can be used through Chromebooks. But then little people who don't bring their Chromebook home, who don't have a phone or access.
And of course, we still have the typical reporting processes for bullying and discrimination, those kinds of things that you go through the office.
Yeah,
So,
it's something I think kids, and we're on the cusp after, unfortunately, what we hear young people calling police for needed reasons and having phones available to them. We're on the cusp of kids being able to report at every level, when they need help. So it's not something that we don't want to discuss or we don't want to have.
so my suggestion is to bring that in July or early August for review. We have a presenter from the vendor who can give that presentation, answer a lot of questions.
Great.
That's all I have.
I have one quick question. With Principal Nemenich and Principal Morton, is there a transition time for that?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. On the 20th, I'm planning to recommend hiring Mr. Norton on a day-by-day basis for maybe 10 to 20 days, just so that there's an overlap with Ms. Nemenich.
Okay.
So it's not on the consent agenda today, but that's my plan, because so much has happened here in the high school, and Frank needs to feed information to Mr. Nemenich, so that's going to be my recommendation.
Because otherwise, his time would be up June 30th.
Or June 15th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he has plans for a few days, the week of the 15th, and so that part will work out, and then on the 20th, if I can get approval to extend those days.
We're looking at overlap for hiring assistant principals.
Mr. Nemenich is conducting interviews, I believe, this week for
okay.
assistant principals. So, and I imagine that Mr. Norman is involved as well.
Okay, so they've got it worked out.
Yeah, they have that worked out.
Okay.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Okay, then we are on to the consent agenda. And I would like to pull item 3. Does anyone have anything else they would like to pull from the consent agenda?
I'd like to pull number 7.
Okay.
And if I could add that under the hiring of Jen Bierman, the recommendation is to hire her at MA plus 20 because we received more transcripts over the weekend. And then also at step 11 instead of step 10. So that's the recommended change for Ms. Bierman.
Let me just keep that. Let me do that one.
Sure.
Is it written down anywhere?
Yes.
No, I believe Lisa sent an email
She did,
out to
yes.
board members, so, yeah.
But it's not written in here,
No.
so we'll have to pencil it.
That we approve the consent agenda minus items 3 and 7.
All right. We have a motion by Mr. Dierks to approve the consent agenda minus items 3 and 7. Is there a second?
Second.
And we don't discuss, right? Is that one of the ones we have to discuss? Okay. 7. Okay, we will do a roll call vote. So, in favor of approving consent agenda minus items 3 and 7, Ms. Buck,
Aye.
Mr. Dierks,
Aye.
Ms. Rowe, Ms. Tower,
Aye.
here, Mr. Bryant,
Aye.
and chair votes aye, so that carries 6-0. Okay. Item 3. I am on it, so I will not vote on it.
I do have a question about that, your line. Is there a reason why we're voting on something that's effective on February 8th? Is that a misprint or is that, why are we approving that 4 months later?
Yeah, there were some issues as far as hiring people for the musical. And so in the end, there were people affiliated with the play who asked Anna to do the work. Anna did the work, In the past, we paid that particular position, I think, $1,000, if I'm not mistaken. And so it should have gone through a different process, and it didn't. And so by the time it percolated up through activities director's office and business office, then it came to my desk. And so it just took time to process all of that. Does that answer your question? I know it's kind of vague.
It just seems like 4 months is a long time for it to percolate.
Yeah. Yeah, some things, so Mr. Hartman and Ms. French investigated what happened and took some information from a lot of people. And there are going to be some changes as far as those hirings taking place in the future, and Mr. Hartman will be the one who's kind of running it. In the past, it's always been really confusing because it was it felt like a city project, even though it wasn't. And so all those discussions with hirings and everything went through a committee, including Jackie Paradis. Always very confusing. And this year we had co-directors. One person was working with a budget with Jackie. Paul was supposed to be, supervises the program, and it was complicated. And so I think some things fell through the cracks. It was not Anna's fault. And she did the work, but it took time to first figure out what was going on and then to do I shouldn't say investigation, more of a review, but I know they're making some changes for the future, so will be handled better in the future.
Thanks for that explanation.
What is targeted services teacher? What is, I don't remember seeing that. Maybe you did, but
or maybe it was called a different name. Targeted services is, it's special programming that works with kids who have fallen behind. And so there's 7 or 8 different categories where people can qualify for targeted services. In Red Wing, we have after-school programming during the school year, and then a lot of summer programming. And for grades K through 8, it's called targeted services. For the older kids, it's called credit recovery. And so these particular teachers these targeted learning teachers are working in the summer school with our kids. And so they do a wide variety of activities to help catch them up.
But they don't start till July 18th?
Yeah, I don't recall the date offhand, but that's
effective July 18th, 2022.
Is it for the second session?
Yeah, let me just see if
They all say
that.
that. So, but I think they all say that.
When I did that summer program, when I worked for the district years ago, we didn't start until August. I mean, we didn't start till the end of July, we went into August.
But there's summer schools going on now.
But that's a different summer school.
Okay, that's
That's what I'm
good to know.
thinking, is it's the targeted services program, and that's the one I taught in also.
And then, and I don't have any problem with Jennifer Bierman, but it's just odd that we're talking step 11, something A, something that means nothing to us. What are we talking, what is step 11, MA, 12 or 20, whatever that's thing.
MA plus 20?
What is, I mean, those steps don't mean anything to us without having the thing in front of us. So what's the difference there? Other than she submitted some paperwork.
Yeah, no, our contracts are online, so, as far as looking at actual salary amounts, but MA plus 20 would be, Jen, in this case, earned a master's degree. And then after earning that master's degree, she's earned 20 semester credits in graduate school. And so she qualifies for the MA plus 20 lane on our contract. And so that's the amount of education. We really don't have a choice. That's what's in the contract.
No, I've
been listing it, but that's what that means. And then step is where, in this case, Jen is placed. For teachers, we have steps 1 through 11. And we're obligated to provide at least step 6 if they have 6 years of experience. And then it's negotiable from there, from steps 7 through 11. And so in this case, Jen's a math teacher, very hard to find a great math teacher. She's worked here before. She has plenty of experience, and so we put her at step 11.
I know she worked here before.
Mhm.
Okay, just
Mhm.
didn't know, I wanted to.
So I'm glad you asked. Mhm.
Any other? So I'm looking for a motion to approve, number 3 from the consent agenda.
Oh,
Second.
can't discuss. Yeah, we can on this, you can't, and you can't discuss the basic one. As amended, I assume,
Yes.
is that right? You're approving item 3 as amended.
With a gender and
With the,
Oh,
and then,
yeah. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, so the motion is to approve consent agenda item number 3 as amended, but motion made by Mr. Bryant, second by Ms. Rowe. We will do roll call, beginning with Mr. Dierks.
Aye.
Ms. Rowe? Aye. Ms. Towers? Aye. Ms. Tiff is not here. Mr. Bryant?
Aye.
Ms. Buck?
Aye.
And I'm abstaining, so that carries 5-0. Okay. Then item 7, our data sharing agreements.
thank you. So I read through them all, and they're from different entities, obviously, Three Rivers, which is Head Start, Youth Outreach, Fernbrook, ELC, Hispanic Outreach, and Prairie Island. Now, Fernbrook and Prairie Island have it written in there that there's gotta be a written consent, but the other 3 say informed consent. So I am uncomfortable agreeing to anything that doesn't have written consent with it. So I looked up what informed consent is, and according to a Minnesota statute, it is written. So are we asking families then to opt in to sharing this data or opt out of sharing the child's data? What does that look like?
yeah, and with these particular agreements, it's an opt-in. And so maybe the best way to look at it is, hold on a second. ELC might be, Environmental Learning Center might be a little bit different because the kids are choosing to be in a class. Jason Jack is working with one of our teachers collaboratively in that class. And so their participation in the class is their choice to be in the class. And so they, Jason is leading the efforts in the class.
But would they still, if he wanted to look at data from the kids, he wouldn't just get to because he's an outside entity. He would still have to ask the parents permission to work,
I'm gonna have to check
to
that.
get data. I'm not talking about to work with the kids, that's separate.
Yeah, well, it'd be like, I'd have to check with the teacher of record in that class as far as who can look at the child's attendance, for example, for that class, or grades for that class. I'm not exactly sure how that works out. So that's something I'd have to check.
Okay.
These ELC, but the other ones like Youth Outreach, Hispanic Outreach, and Prairie Island Indian Community. What happens is that we have this overarching agreement, the data sharing agreement, and then parents have to sign off on sharing information with representatives from those entities.
Can I see a copy of what the sign-off form looks like?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can, in fact, I can send it to you during the meeting.
Is it one blanket sign-off form for Red Wave with all of the entities, or does each entity have their own sign-off form?
Yeah, yes and yes. What I've done is after like a data sharing agreement is done, then what I try to do is to tailor each one of the student release forms to that organization. Because then it's crystal clear and I don't have people filling out the blanks incorrectly, that kind of thing. And so if there's a student working or who will be working with the youth outreach mentor, then the parent will sign that student release form that's specifically highlighting or that mentions youth outreach. and the people who have access to the data. So the parent fills that out. It goes through the, obviously with outreach, I think the high school office, and then eventually the Melinda Johnson who keeps track of it. And so that's kind of the process that's go. So this is the overarching agreement, and then we have those individual student release forms that have to be filled out. But I can send you, I'll send you a copy.
Yeah, that would be great.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think my biggest concern was 3 of them didn't mention informed written consent, but the other 2 did.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, in the 3 were Hispanic outreach, youth outreach, and ELC. And then Prairie Island mentioned written
Oh,
consent.
did. Oh,
Yeah, and so did Fernbrook, because that's an individual basis that the parents sign up for. Yes, I want my child to have services through Fernbrook.
right.
So I just wanted us to be very crystal clear on how we're sharing data, and I want the parents to have written informed consent that this is what they're sharing with outside agencies. So that's my hesitation. So I don't know, I'm okay with the 2 that have written consent, but I'm not okay with the 1 unless we understand that implied, inferred, informed consent is written, which that's what the statute in Minnesota that I pulled up. And it doesn't reference that, I don't think, in any of those agreements.
And the forms are all written, correct?
Mhm. Yeah.
For each entity.
And then, so if I'm remembering correctly, from when we discussed this back in policy and legislative, which, was like a year ago probably, some of those agreements were different, or not the agreements, but the forms were different too, depending on the agency because of what data was required by that agency. So like if, my kid is signing up to work with Fernbrook Family Center, I shouldn't actually use a real example because I might say something wrong. But let's say my kid is signing up to work with a particular agency, and that agency, because of the work that they're doing, has a need to know medical information. Like that would be a line on there. Whereas if my kid was signing up to work with a mentorship program where medical information is irrelevant, that would not be included on that list. So I think that was one of the things where that form that the parent fills out or signs is basically the same, but all of those things, like what is included in the data sharing, that was specific to the agency based on like what their needs were going to be. So it was very clear for the parents to see that like, this is the information that will be shared and this is not information that would be shared. Is that still
Yeah, well said.
the case? Okay.
Yeah, and then I kind of have a template that I have that, I revise depending on the organization. And then there are certain parts where I just say, no, we're not going to share this with this entity, period.
So it's a
They
list
have
of like all the
choice.
data that the school district has and whether or not the information is shared.
Right. And I think that's important because mentors don't need to know the psychological reports for a student. And so I don't want a parent to accidentally sign off that they are eligible to receive that information. We don't want to share it. We're not going to share it. So what I'll do is, I'll send you a copy. I'll also send a copy to Lisa so she can put it on the website so that at least we're transparent as far as what we're sharing.
Do you want to hold off on this until the 20th?
I would like the contracts to have uniformity in the language, so it's not confusing. Well, I didn't sign, or I did sign, or I have to have written consent. I would just like them to be uniform in the way that they present and how we vote as a board. Yes, it's informed written consent that we are asking families to opt in. It's not well, I did talk to them at the grocery store. They did say they wanted those services.
Yeah, there's no sense of urgency to get them approved tonight. I think it might be easier if we just waited on all of them for 2 weeks, just so we're keeping track of which ones are approved and which ones haven't been approved, and that won't be a problem. We don't, I'm kind of ahead of the curve because I'm hoping that it's done before I leave so we don't get a loss in the shuffle.
And there's one more thing. Your signature is required on Fernbrook, but Jennifer's signature is required on all of the other ones. Is that because of Fernbrook? Or is it just because we forgot to put Jennifer's name there?
I have no idea.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, the others, they all say the clerk.
That's an honest answer.
Yeah, most,
Yeah.
except for the Fernbrook one says Superintendent Carson Anderson. So I thought, well, if we're gonna move forward with,
Yeah, I was thinking it's better to get school board approval,
yeah,
regardless. And then if it's Jennifer or me or Anna or whoever, signs it, I just think it should go through the school board.
it says you and Sherry Johnson for Fernbrook.
Yeah, that one is,
But I thought maybe because it's more comprehensive, or if it should be
it could be either one.
the clerk, or since you're not gonna be here.
It really doesn't matter.
It
but-
doesn't matter to me either, I just didn't know if we wanted to have them all uniform. So we're not calling you in St. Francis and being like, hey, when you sign that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So we will table item 7 until
The 20th.
June 20.
Whichever
The
one.
motion to table that, do you want to? Or
I'll make a motion to table the consent
number 7?
to the 27th of June.
Number 7.
Number 7 to the 27th.
That's
So,
okay.
20th?
Yeah.
20th.
20th.
Isn't it? Yes.
I make a motion
You just wait till the next meeting,
till
next
the next
regular board
meeting
meeting.
to address number 7, the informed consent.
Second.
As messy as the consent.
Okay, so we have a motion to table consent agenda item number 7 until the next meeting. Made by Ms. Tower, second by Mr. Bryant. Ms. Rowe? Aye. Ms. Tower?
Aye.
Ms. Tiff is not here. Mr. Bryant?
Aye.
Ms. Buck?
Aye.
Mr. Deere?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, that carries 6-0. So we will get that another meeting. Okay, then we are on to our resolution accepting donations and grants. So we have a few different donations, / grants, both. Wings Foundation gave $6,072 for binocular ADA accessible viewing station at Cobble Park for the Park Naturalist Program with Community Edge. So I think that's some of what you were referencing in your report. Coalition for Strong Schools gave $150 for the Redway High School food pantry. There was an anonymous donation of 22 Scholastic books for the Burnside Book Swap. Kelly Lexgold donated 2 trombones to Twin Bluff Middle School. And Red Wing Youth Outreach donated $23,000 or granted $23,000 for a curriculum purchase and staff development.
Motion to approve the 5 donations that were just listed.
Second. Okay, we have a motion to approve these donations and grants by Mr. Bryant, second by Ms. Rowe. Any discussion?
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic.
Okay, I will begin roll call with Ms. Tower.
Aye.
Mr. Bryant?
Aye.
Ms. Buck?
Aye.
Mr. Deere?
Aye.
Ms. Rowe? Aye. And chair votes aye, so that carries 6-0. And again, thank you. All right, policy changes. So policy 609 had some fairly minor text updates, and we did a first and second reading. So today would be the final reading and approval for policy 609. Does anyone have anything they would like to discuss about that before we go ahead with that?
I move to approve revisions to policy 609 as presented.
Second. Motion by Ms. Tower, second by Ms. Rowe to approve policy 609 as presented. Any other discussion? All right, Mr. Bryant.
Aye.
Ms. Buck.
Aye.
Ms. Rowe. Aye. Ms. Tower.
Aye.
And chair votes aye, so that carries 6-0. We have a resolution calling for a 2022 general election. for school board.
I move to approve the resolution calling for the 2022 general election.
I will second that.
Bueller.
And again, we have 3 school board spots that'll be available. So this is just a technical resolution, and then the county will get its information so that the ballot can be prepared.
And when is the filing deadline?
August 16th,
Okay, friends. Put your names in there.
August 9th through the 16th, 7 days.
That's all it is, 7 days.
Yeah,
It's a tight little window.
gotta move it where you lose it.
Okay, so motion is made on Ms. Howard, you second?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't have my paper ready.
Bring your $2.
Okay, so for the there's a motion to approve the resolution calling for the 2022 general election by Ms. Howard, second by Ms. Rowe. Any other discussion? Okay, Ms. Buck?
Aye.
Mr. Dukes?
All right.
Ms. Rowe? Aye. Ms. Tower?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. That carries 6-0. Oh, Mr. Bryant, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Sorry. So it still carries 6-0. Okay. LTFM bond acceptance.
Jackie's here to give the presentation.
Will the new lights shut off in the middle of the meeting?
I don't know. I don't think they're upgraded in here yet.
Maybe that's what we need to know before we vote.
So at the first meeting in May, we approved a parameters resolution, at which Baker Tilly would try to market our bonds. I am glad to say that on May 25th, our sale occurred and was within the parameters. Northland Securities was the purchaser, and the true interest cost is 3.29%. If you're interested in the debt service schedule with the payments and the actual interest costs on each and every payment, it is on page 20 of the resolution. I'm glad we got 3.29%. When I had the follow-up call with Baker Tilly, they said they sold the day before and it was over 4%. So it really is dependent on the market on the day you sell. So we chose a good day, I guess. Are there any questions?
Okay. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the resolution ratifying the issuance and sale of general obligation facilities maintenance bond series 2022A.
So moved. I'll second it.
Oh,
Well, you can.
you got it, you're good.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Bryant, second by Mr. Dierks. Any other discussion? Okay, we will do our roll call this time, beginning, yeah, Ms. Buck.
Aye.
Aye.
Ms. Rowe? Aye. Ms. Tower?
Aye.
Mr. Bryant?
Aye.
And chair votes aye, so that carries 6-0. All right. Justine is here again to give us some information about the joint powers agreement for, you'll have to tell me what it stands for, SEMUPC. I don't remember.
Southeast Minnesota United Purchasing Co-op is what it stands for.
Thank you.
Yes, you're
Makes sense.
welcome. So we have been going through the RFP process. We started in March, and it's been kind of a rough road. We have 12 school districts that we belong to with this co-op, and it's put together so we can gain interest of our vendors, because if you have such a small school district, sometimes you won't get any bids for process. So we are able to get more interest by unifying ourselves with 11 other school districts. So we just went through the bid process, and we have one vendor. And the purpose of this, though, is to we kind of changed a little bit of the language in the the joint powers agreement to add the co-op facilitator, and you can see on that page 2, where in the red, it's just minor changes, but it just kind of adds the business manager, and it talks about how the co-op facilitator will be chosen for each district. Our current co-op facilitator is retiring, or she retired on the 30th. So now the co-op facilitator is going to be through Cannon Falls School District. It's going to be really good. And then we just, we kind of keep our business managers in the loop of what's going on with the co-op, and if we need any help with like numbers and such, because it's quite the process. So the purpose of this too also was to get a signature, because nobody has the agreement with all the signatures on it. It's just been kind of passed from school district to school district without having all of the signatures on there. So the superintendents got together and they communicated together, talking about this co-op, because some of them didn't even know it existed. So it was nice to get everybody in the loop and kind of everybody on the same page of what's going on with the co-op, because a lot of people didn't, or some people didn't know that it even existed. Is there any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to thank you for bringing this to us, because I might have known it existed, but I don't remember that I knew that. So I really appreciate it, knowing this, and good luck with getting it all organized.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
People are coming together to say, okay, let's get this organized about the food. So thank you.
Yes, I'm really excited that everybody is really having more conversations about everything that's going on. So I'm excited about this change, and I think we're going to do really good.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you for your work on this.
Thanks, Jess.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Custodial agreement, I believe is next, right?
Negotiations, committee members and I are pleased to present the proposed agreement for the 22-23 school year with our custodial group. You can see the highlights of the agreement include a 2% cost of living adjustment, a $1 per hour increase in the custodial pay, increases in differentials, especially boiler pay and boiler rotation differentials. The contract is over budget by $23,000, and it looks like Lisa has a question.
Yes.
So maybe we should
Pause for a moment. Lisa?
Did I miss it? Did we take a vote on the joint power agreement?
I had that no action was needed, so no, we did not take a vote. Do we need to?
I was with you.
My fault on that.
We should have a motion to approve it as it's signed.
Yeah, definitely. That's my error.
I'll make a motion to approve the SEMPU, whatever, C agreement. Am I right on that?
Mhm.
SEMUPC Joint Powers Agreement. I have a second.
Second.
Great. Okay, motion to approve the SEMUPC Joint Powers Agreement by Mr. Bryant, second by Ms. Tower. Any other discussion? All right. Mr. Dukes?
I said aye.
You were, you're jumping the gun on me. Ms. Rowe? Aye. Ms. Tower?
Aye.
Mr. Bryant?
Aye.
Ms. Buck?
Aye.
Your vote's aye, so that carries 6-0. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lisa.
Good thing somebody knows what they're doing around here.
I asked, I said, do we have to do a motion?
Yes.
I thought, well.
So again, with the custodial contract, I went over the 3 highlights in the agreement. It is $23,000 over budget, but we strongly feel that it's critical to find more people to have boiler licenses on our staff because we have several that are about to, or that could potentially retire in the next several years. And so we want to encourage as many of our custodians as possible to take the training needed to obtain those boiler licenses. So the recommendation of the committee is to approve the agreement for the 22-23 school year as presented.
So moved.
I'll second that.
we have a motion to approve the custodial engineer maintenance personnel agreement for 2022-23 as presented by Mr. Bryant, second by Ms. Rowe. Any other discussion?
I just think, if I may, seeing the salary range, pay rates on the last page there, some of them, with the way the economy is right now, I think we're very fortunate to have an agreement and finding people to fill those positions. So.
All right, I'll begin roll call with Ms. Rowe.
Aye.
Ms. Tower.
Aye.
Mr. Bryant.
Aye.
Ms. Buck.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, so 6-0. All right. Oh, and I had added in superintendent hiring as 4.6. And you can also see that in our list of upcoming meetings and future topics, some of those dates plugged in there. So everybody on the board should have received an invitation from Amy French to get into the AppleTrack system. I believe, I'm not sure, I did see another email come in, so I think we're at like 8 applicants at this point. The applications close Thursday at 4 p.m. Monday, we have a meeting to select who the finalists are. So between Thursday at 4 p.m. and, Friday, I will make a list of all of those applicants and assign them a letter so that at our meeting on June 13th, we can talk about them. We need to not talk about any identifying characteristics, but can say like, I feel like candidate A or C, is the strongest for me, or I would like to interview them, or whatever the case may be as we discuss them. The plan then that we discussed Tuesday was to then interview those candidates that we found alignment with on June 20th, June 27th to select to meet again to discuss our individual that we felt was the best candidate to become interim superintendent, and to be able to offer them a position and enter negotiations, and then approve that contract on around July 11th. We set a special meeting for that date. When Ms. French and I met to go over putting the posting online, she didn't know what date to put as the potential start date. I said do July 1st because ideally we would have someone start. The position is open July 1st. The actual start date may not be till that July 11th, but if all the planets aligned and we had a candidate that we knew we wanted to offer the position to before that 27th, if something like that were to happen, I wanted us to be able to say that the position could start July 1st if everything worked out in that case. So I think that's kind of where things are at this point. And so that is the plan as it existed after our meeting on Tuesday. I know that Ms. Buck is not able to be here in person on June 20th for those interviews, but so I don't know if you wanted to talk about that, Nikki, or if you're able to join us remotely, or what we want to do, because you had emailed to say that you, after thinking about that, wanted to discuss that.
I'm not going to meet on my vacation. I just said earlier, I bend over backwards. I accommodate my schedule to everybody else and for free. And I'm not going to do that anymore. I already told you that. And I think it is very crucial that I be there for this decision. I just don't know why we have to rush. I also said that too. It's not good for ADHD people. It's not good for normal people. This is a crucial decision we are making for everybody, but especially for people like me. And don't you think that people like me should be at the table?
Mr. Dirks, you're next in the queue.
Well, that my question is, if there's any way, you said assign a letter to each candidate, it's gonna be complicated, but it can be done for me to keep track of the people in Apple track and then try to cross-reference to a name. I'm just asking if there's any way that there could be an addition to Apple track with a
Without a
letter.
letter in there.
And if it can, great, if not, I'll make it work, but it just,
I'll
for
ask
simplicity, I just thought it'd be.
Letter?
Each candidate's gonna be assigned a letter, because we can't talk about.
An alphabet letter.
Yes.
Okay.
That's all I had, I just wanted to make that comment, to be nice if we could.
So as I understand it, this is the dates are already sent though as part of the interview process to all the applicants already, right? This is what was decided last Tuesday, and this is what has already gone out to all the applicants saying, these are the dates that you are expected to be prepared for in your interview process. That's already gone out to them.
Correct. Mr. Ryan?
Did you have your hand up?
You can go, I'll let you.
Yeah, I get it. I think I was the one kind of suggesting we go out to the 27th because that was brought up, I think, by Jennifer a little bit, and then Nikki wasn't gonna be there, but she needs to be at the table. She needs to be here in person interviewing with the rest of us. And I realize we tell the candidates, but we can just modify the date and I think we need to move it out to the 27th. And we can make a decision that night pending a background check. So we're not gonna delay the process of going forward. We just do the interviews on the 27th, then meet and talk about A through C, whatever we're interviewing, come to a consensus with our decision, and we're all 7 here, and proceed from there. All we're doing is changing the interview date from the 20th to the 27th to accommodate for all board members to be present. So.
Ms. Howard?
I agree. I was not here last week for a very serious reason. However, I did watch the meeting, and listening to Nikki state that that's okay, I don't need to be there, almost broke my heart. She does need to be here. Whether or not we want to acknowledge what board member Buck represents, but it is everything that we have been talking about in terms of equity. And if we use arbitrary timelines, like we have to get this done, and we exclude a critical member of our board, that's another roadblock that we put in front of somebody to make a deadline work that's arbitrary. And not that it's not important, deadlines are important, yes, I understand. But it's not like Ms. Buck said, you know, yesterday, hey, I can't come. She was very clear that she wasn't able to make it, and you know, Mr. Bryant was like, let's do it the 27th so we all can be there. I think to really interrupt systemic racism and systemic systems of arbitrary timelines and arbitrary roadblocks to, you can't vote here, you can't do this, because I think we have to just be inclusive. And inclusive would have been, hey, Ms. Buck can't be here, let's do it the 27th. We have to email candidates now and say, we're switching or not switching. If they're watching the meeting tonight, they'll understand why. And if they don't understand why, they might not be a good candidate for referendum. I mean, we're really trying to do the equity work. And if we exclude somebody from the table who has a voice and experience that our students have, it's critical that that person is at the table with us.
So do we want to switch to, I'm hearing 3 at least want to switch to the 27th. I am fine. I think, you know, it is important for Ms. Buck to be there. And the timeline is in a way arbitrary, but by state rules that we have to have a superintendent on July 1st. That's not arbitrary.
That's not totally true.
But we need to have an acting one. So we need to be moving on
We
it.
have to be moving, we have to be going, showing that we're.
Yeah, but I'm still
progressing.
talking. Thank you.
Sorry.
So, I think that option to decide the night of the 27th, I mean, I think that could work. And I think it is important for Ms. Buck to be there. So, you know, I think the 27th might be a better option to do the interviews that day. But hopefully it will be clear enough for us to make the decision that night as well. But I don't know if you want to add in an additional meeting between the 27th and because of the need to have them posted in advance, that if it's not abundantly clear, if people want to take time to think about it, you know, do we add another meeting after the 27th?
You mean the board?
But yes.
Okay, I was like, what people?
After the 27th, but not too much after, you know what I mean? Like the 28th, the 29th, something like that, so that it's on our schedule. If we have those interviews on the 27th and everyone's like, oh, yep, I know who I want, we're all in agreement, great, we can cancel the meeting. But if that night we were to be like, I would really like to sleep on this, let's have a meeting tomorrow, we can't, well, I mean, I guess we could do the recess option, but I don't know. I think it's easier to have things scheduled and cancel them if we don't need them than to try to plug them in after.
Well, it's,
You know what I mean?
It's easier on our schedule too. We know it's already in there.
That's right, yes.
Apologize for interrupting you, it's my pet peeve. I'm in favor of going to the 27th, and I like the idea of at this point, scheduling a special meeting for the 28th for us to think about it. We don't, at this point, don't know how many candidates we're gonna choose. So I think, we didn't pass a motion, we just consensus was to go with the dates that we chose that for the special meetings.
Mm-hmm.
So we just not hopefully, since Amy or yourself are the contact people there, you just need to notify them to change their dates to the 27th. If they're chosen, keep that date in mind. So, you want a motion to do it on the 27th? Is everybody gonna be here on the 27th?
And the 28th, probably.
And the 28th, yes.
27th is a Monday?
Yes.
I think,
No, I'm gonna bend my hands around and make it work. That's the way I'm planning to be out of town.
We had,
on the 27th.
Well, it's my 4th of July vacation type of setup and stuff. I'm gonna make it one way or another. I'm committed to it, so. I'm not gonna pick dates for other people. I know it's important to have everybody here, and I'll make it work.
And I don't know, I assume, because Jennifer didn't say anything about not being here when we talked on Tuesday, I'm assuming she's gonna be here then, but of course, don't know 100% for sure.
you want a motion on these dates to make sure people know that
We could, wouldn't
we're
hurt.
doing these are the dates? I make a motion that we do interviews for the interim superintendent starting at 5 p.m. on June 27th, with a special meeting on June 28th at 5 o'clock to make a decision if we're gonna pick any of those that we interview as our interim superintendent.
Okay,
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Bryant, second by Ms. Tower to conduct interviews for interim superintendent candidates at 5 p.m. on June, beginning at 5 p.m. on June 27th, with a special meeting at 5 p.m. on June 28th to decide, I'm sorry, I lost.
Mr. Bryant and Ms. Tower, are you okay if I use the same verbiage here, selection of individual and negotiations becoming superintendent?
It's not in our packet here, is it?
It's in the, like, the meeting, the upcoming meetings.
It's at the end of that.
Oh, yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all right.
Okay, any other discussion about that? Ms. Tower, you're in the queue. You want?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I think we handled it. I was gonna ask about the 20th. But I think we got it, figured out by adding the 28th, which I really appreciate moving in that direction. If it had to be the 29th or the 3rd, I think we have that week. I think sometimes we get stuck on Monday, because that's when we typically do board meetings. And that's a very common thought, like, well, we have to do it on a Monday, because that's when we have board meetings. But we don't, so I appreciate you moving in that direction. Thank you. That's all I want to say.
Okay, any other discussion?
This is gonna be a vote.
Yeah, there's a motion. So the motion is to conduct interviews beginning at 5 p.m. on June 27th with a special meeting on June 28th at 5 p.m. to select an individual to enter negotiations to become interim superintendent. Motion made by Mr. Bryant, second by Ms. Tower. Okay, I will begin our roll call with Ms. Tower.
Aye.
Mr. Bryant.
Aye.
Ms. Buck.
Aye.
Mr. Dierks.
Aye.
Ms. Rowe. Aye. And chair votes aye. So that carries 6-0. And I will talk to, I know we can update the posting, but if there's an easy way to just reply to all of the candidates to make sure that they know about the change.
Yeah, Amy will be able to help you with that.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Dierks.
Yeah, at our last meeting, I asked that we find out if we have, I guess I'm gonna call it an acting superintendent, options for an acting superintendent, and if GCED would have that option available, or list of some names or somebody that we can have that just, I honestly don't believe we're gonna have somebody in place by July 1st. That we gotta still negotiate a contract, all these other things. And so somebody's gotta be here with a superintendent's license to sign for stuff after Carson leaves. So my question was, I asked at the last meeting if anybody would check with GCED and if they could supply superintendent service or something like that, or other places. I haven't heard anything.
Yes.
Isn't there a sub pool for superintendents?
Yeah, we have several options. Arlen mentioned one of them. There are people at GCD who have a superintendent's license. We have some internal people who could step in that role. We have retired soups in Southeast Minnesota. So yeah, we will find somebody. We may want to do that in the next week or so. And are you willing to do that, or do you want me to do some research? Either one.
To see what the options are?
Yeah, or to, I can do it, that's no problem.
I just feel like there could be like we need a sub, maybe.
Well,
There are for very short.
we
term.
should have something
Yeah.
put in place, ready.
I don't think you're
And
wrong.
I think we should have that presented to us at our next board meeting, what our options are and who they might be. Or just, what I'm calling acting superintendent until this is done. And maybe it's not needed, but at least we got ourselves covered.
For July 1st through the 11th, approximately.
Mr. Brian has his hand.
Oh, yes.
Why don't you, Mr. Superintendent, talk to Mr. Frank Norton, who carries a superintendent license, to see if he'd be available to sign something on a part-time basis until we get somebody in place. It's a logical choice to me. He's a principal. I don't think somebody has to be here every day. A couple days a week, come in and do whatever.
Yeah, well, in Mr. Norton's case, my thinking was have him come back as the principal, the interim principal, so he'll be here anyway. It really, it's more of a formality, just in case something has to be signed. I don't
Here's
think
the
there'd be-
license.
Yeah, he carries,
Good thinking.
yeah, there's no,
How long,
you don't need extra time or anything like that.
Thank
He has to be here.
That's what I was thinking.
how long were you planning to ask for him to come back for? You said 20 days or something. but
10
like-
to 20 days, depends on
So-
his vacation that he has planned in June.
Okay, so were you already thinking like mid-July? Was that kind of I don't know if you're thinking 20 calendar days or business days,
No,
you know what I mean?
business
Like,
days.
okay.
Yeah.
So that would put us in about that same timeframe. Okay. So that's one option. I think we'll need to vote on, do we want to vote on that at this moment to ask him? Or do we want to ask him for, how do we want to?
I think either you or I could just go talk to him and we can find out real soon.
Okay.
Other thing, I would like to see us have a couple options at our next meeting. I don't know who we got for candidates. Maybe Mr. Norton would apply, and if he did, would that be counter
Conflict of interest.
conflict of interest doing that the other way, or, I don't know.
I don't either.
Yeah, maybe he would, maybe he wouldn't, I don't know. So I'm just asking if we have some options to talk about at our next meeting. I don't think we're gonna solve it tonight. I just like to see a list of options available
Ideas.
Okay. We can add those to, well, yeah, so we meet. June 13th is a special meeting to determine the finalists for interim superintendent and to discuss interview questions and processes. I was just wondering if we're far enough out, if we could add filled in superintendent information to that meeting.
I think it'd be easier just to do it
To
on
do
the
on the
20th.
20th?
Yeah.
Just add it to the
and
agenda, the regular.
Yeah, this won't be, I think it's good to have multiple options and then you can decide, but it's not a make or break kind of deal. It's really truly formality. And I think it's the right thing. If we do it on July 1st and thereafter, let's do it. But I'll be able to come up with Anna and or I will be able to come up with a couple of names.
Arlen, does that mean all of your, do you ask Kyle your questions?
Yeah, that's fine. I just looking
I'm
to
looking
have
down
some,
with you.
I'm sorry.
Lisa, I assume you have a clarifying question?
Yes, my question is if the board is moving, you have moved the interviews to the 27th, did you wish to reinstate the workshop on the 20th?
That's what I was just.
I believe so, yes. Because I think we have things that we need, like the organizational chart and potentially other things to discuss then, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, Mr. Bryant, or are you back in?
Lisa and I are on the same page there, because we just talked at a workshop about referendum planning. And since we now have a workshop time, my suggestion and thought would be to do referendum planning as one topic for the workshop. And we have, I think, some safety stuff too, wasn't there? Some safety stuff we were supposed to have in June here?
I think that was gonna come in July,
it
after we got all
July?
this
Yeah.
organized, we were gonna have a whole conversation.
With everything going on in the
Yes.
country, it's
Yes.
proper
It's-
time to have a discussion in these summer months.
It's critical.
Thank you. I'll take my hand out of the queue.
Okay, so then, I think that pretty much covers, the things.
Monday, Tuesday.
Yes,
One more.
and, sorry, yes,
Before you get too far, you heard about the 13th, we're still meeting the 13th to go over the candidates, right? So give them ample time to prepare for the interview. Thank you.
all right, and I appreciate the civil discussion tonight. We did have a person who was interested in the position, who emailed after our last meeting to say, based on watching the meeting, that they were no longer interested in working with us. So appreciate that tonight has been a better meeting. Okay, so the list of upcoming meetings and topics is there. I have a couple other things added in, looking at enrollment, specifically like what we can do to improve enrollment, and kind of like to your points earlier, Ms. Rowe, about, not just talking about it, but coming up with some plans, adding that in. The Stop It program, whether we add that to a workshop, the referendum planning and org chart for June 20th. All right, do we have anything else that needs to get added to upcoming agendas? Ms. Howard?
I just want to say, I feel like we were scolded, and I wasn't there last week, but that doesn't feel okay, because we're adults and we come to this table with passion. And if that person didn't want to enter, that's their prerogative. But feeling or being dressed down about behavior to adults that were voted on by the public, somebody may not have liked somebody's behavior, somebody may have been cheering them on. So that didn't feel right. And I appreciate you, wanting to put that out there, but it didn't feel like it was the right time.
All right, anything else that needs to be added to a meeting? If not, I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn by Ms. Tower, second by Ms. Rowe. Sorry, I'm going to write if I broke hand. Okay, Mr. Bryant.
Aye.
Ms. Buck.
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Ms. Rowe. Aye. Ms. Howard.
Aye.
And Chair votes aye. So 6-0, we are adjourned at 8:42 p.m.
Oh, flyers?
I think they came in the mail.
Did they, and then you just put them by your table, okay.
I didn't, I think Lisa